cut them out.
Welcome, everyone. This is Kristen Vincent, Chair of the Westborough School Committee. Today is Wednesday, October 6, 2021. This meeting of the Westborough School Committee is called to order. Please stand if you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everyone also forgot the pledge after.
Thank you for joining us this evening. Anyone attending the school committee meeting tonight is welcome to wear a mask, and unvaccinated individuals are strongly advised to wear masks. I'd like to notify everyone in the room with us tonight that this meeting is being recorded by Westborough TV. School committee meetings are available for remote viewing or listening on Westborough TV's government channels, Verizon 28 and Charter 192, and online on the Westborough TV YouTube channel. A recording of this meeting will be posted on the Westborough YouTube channel in the next day or so. And thank you to Westborough TV for covering the broadcast tonight. We have with us tonight Superintendent Amber Bach, Assistant Superintendent Dr. Daniel Mayer, Director of Finance and Administration David Gordon, Vice Chair of the Westborough School Committee Steve Durrett, School Committee members Sarah Dulay, Lisa Edinburgh, and Raghu Nandan, Student Representative Andrew Chen, Recording Secretary Jen Benton, and we have staff from Westborough TV handling the broadcast and recording of this meeting. And joining us later are going to be architects and staff from HMFH Architects, here to provide an update on the Fales School construction project, along with Mrs. Stannard, principal of the Fales School. I'll quickly review the agenda. We will have an approval of minutes from September 22nd, regular session. Then we'll have reports from the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and the director of finance and administration. Then we'll have school committee member reports. On the agenda, it says building project updates and citizens requests, but I'm going to flip those around. So we will do citizens requests first, and then we will roll building project updates right into a Fales School project update from HMFH Architects. Then we'll have a presentation on MCAS results, a safe routes to schools update. We'll do some preparation for fall town meeting, which is Monday, October 18th at 7 p.m. at the high school. We'll see a draft of the superintendent's goals for the year. We'll vote on MASC resolutions. We took a look at those during our last meeting. We will vote to approve our school committee goals for the school year. We will see an overview of the new strategic plan for the district. We will have a COVID update on DESE policies involving vaccination rates and mask requirements. And finally, we will accept a donation to the borough program. And then we will adjourn. No executive session is needed tonight. So we will begin with an approval of minutes to approve the minutes from September 22nd.
I'll move to approve the minutes from September 22nd.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion about the minutes? All in favor? All right, 5-0, the minutes are approved. So I'll turn it over to our superintendent. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to see all of you. For my update tonight, I am going to select to do a highlight of our ongoing plan. It should complement the planning related to Fales. I want to look at the planned schedule for communicating with families in the community, the planned opening, and the timeline for providing opportunity for our faculty to pack and transition. So Marianne drafted, and she put my name on it with her to give credit where credit is due, although we've worked on the planning together. She's done an amazing job to prepare for a thoughtful transition. She's been able to step this through with faculty. And so tonight I wanted to give you a brief overview of what that will look like. And then this communication will go out to faculty and families again tomorrow or Friday. So Daniel, do you think you can, do you want me to link it or do you want to open it up? Do you have it, the one that Marianne sent you?
I do, and I'm being remiss.
That's okay. I can, do you want me to just link it and you can open it up?
I have it, just one second.
Okay, I'll let you do it. So first of all, it looks like we're on track to have the first day for students to be greeted in the new building as November 15th. We've leveraged the use of the November 11th Veterans Day no school and holiday time to kind of navigate a series of ways to organize for teachers to prepare to move. So the communication itself is framed to be able to provide the best update in terms of parents understanding how it looks like on the ground for their students. So we will be utilizing at Fails the Professional Development Day. This is a day that families already have planned for, and as part of our calendar, we're releasing from Fails staff and paras at the building level from that Professional Development Day work, and instead they will be utilizing that to do a majority of packing, organizing, and preparing for transition. The 5th, 8th, and 9th are full days of school then to continue to focus on just doing what we do with students. So you can see that the leveraged packing will provide a balance of materials being left available so they can maintain instruction and materials that they're ready to pack and set aside for transition. This will allow us time as well to focus on auxiliary spaces where we can go ahead and pack out art, music, library, PE, those types of transitional moves will be happening a little bit before. Then on the 10th, we want to be clear that we will plan a half day for students with dismissal at 11:55. They will do a grab-and-go lunch available for students who order it that morning. Buses will be running, and then Fails teachers and staff will work on finalizing packing for the move. The next day, it is veterans. Boxes will be moved by professional staff on that day, the end of the day on the 10th and through the 11th up to the new building. And then on the 12th, we will have a really unique day for students in the sense that it's a half day for students that day. And what we're going to want to do is really have some transition, celebration, anticipation, discussion about the move. So it's kind of like a special day in that sense. We'll do time for Fails classroom teachers. They will be up the hill in the new building. We'll be able to have other current Fails staff and subs and district-wide support people, curriculum coordinators, different people who've stepped up to provide instruction for students on that half day, and we'll have some planned activities around closure with that'll be happening over several days, closure with students for, celebration of the idea of going to a new building, and then also highlights and love and affection for the old Fails. And then classroom teachers will come down to help with transition home, and then they will go back up the hill for the rest of the day to be able to work on transition into the new building. And then from there, they've got, again, additional weekend time available. We'll keep the building open and available for staff to be able to come in and finish transition. And then we look to then greet students on the 15th coming into their new day of routines. I want to be clear that all of that will be well mapped out and orchestrated with faculty, and the opportunity for students to probably get a video introduction to what they can expect when they come to the new building. We'll keep it both informal but also informative, and then be able to share that with parents as well. So that's the kind of on-the-ground plan. In terms of different experience for families, it's a half day on the 10th and the half day on the 12th. So I think, again, incredibly complicated for staff, but they really wanted to make sure that they could have as little interrupted instructional time as possible while also still really carving out some meaningful time to pack. So that's the overview of where we anticipate going in order to open the doors to the new Fails. Any questions for that right now?
So is the half days are only for Fails?
Yep.
Correct?
Yes.
In case there's questions about services that are not rendered during those days, or is that going to be covered? I think that's one of the questions that always comes up.
Well, they should be able to, again, I think on an individual basis, make sure that we communicate directly with families, but typically we can complete service delivery in a half day. It meets a full day criteria in that sense, and so meets the expectation, and certainly service providers are very thoughtful about that. But again, you know, the half day constitutes by DESE standards a full day, as we know our half days do. So we were able to provide, again, some break for our teachers, but also make sure that we fit in an instructional day. Good question.
It's good.
So it might be obvious, but so Monday, the 15th, then everyone, students and staff will be in the new building. Oh, scroll up on the,
Down.
Yep, scroll down, there we go.
yep, there we go.
Yep,
Yep,
yep.
perfect.
So first day in the new building, we'll make sure that we have all, you know, all the adults available, all hands on deck to make sure that transition into having students figure out new movement patterns and how to enter the building and how to find their classroom and all the exciting things. You know, I think that again, the FAILS team is a pretty well-oiled machine in terms of making sure that protocols are clear and communication is well thought out. So it's certainly pretty exciting. You know, at this point, we think this timeline will work, and then we'll keep everybody updated if it changes. All right, so that's my update for tonight, and I hope, oh, sorry, Rick.
Busing,
Yeah.
sorry, busing on half days.
So we will run buses on both of those days. Yes. I was like, we did confirm that, right? Yeah, we will be providing busing, yes. Any other questions? We'll keep you updated, of course, as we get closer to that date. So thank you. That's my update for tonight. And again, it'll hopefully answer questions in your head when Julia's here doing the other presentation.
Thank you. Daniel?
Good evening. Just a update on some, as we promised, a social emotional learning update. There are a couple of things I wanted to mention. One, last time we met, I had told you the leadership team was going to be meeting with John Crocker. He's an expert in the state on how to create a comprehensive school mental health model. We met with him actually this morning.
Yeah.
Long day.
It's been a busy day.
And he was terrific. He's very, very knowledgeable. He had all kinds of resources for us to be able to tap into that were like forms and protocols that you could use to measure growth along different dimensions having to do with mental health. And the purpose of him meeting with the leadership team was to talk about, you know, what good counseling should look like and the materials we need to make sure to supply to our counselors to make sure they're effective and with their caseloads. And it was a very robust discussion. And yeah, we're going to continue to work with them through the year, but I was pleased to meet him in person because I heard about, you know, over the last couple of years, we've been working with him in various capacities, and he did train all our counselors last year. So we got a window into what the training was like and you know, the messages he was giving to our counselors. So it was very informative, and he showed us, you know, a number of ways to like look at students to do, he mentioned some of the things that we already had in the works that our administrators had questions about, which was, you know, how can you screen our students who are not necessarily presenting in very obvious ways with social emotional issues that might need attention. And we are planning this year to use some universal screeners. They're basically ways of students and faculty also giving students self-reports or faculty reporting out on characteristics and behaviors of students as a way to basically unearth for students who may present in a very, you know, sort of together way, but have some serious issues that might need some extra support. So we talked about those protocols. We do have already in place the timing being the next few weeks, K through 6, we're going to be using something called the It's the Strengths and Difficulties questionnaire, commonly referred to as the SDQ. So we talked with him a little bit about the specifics of that document, and we're going to do a pre-screen at the beginning of the year, and then also an end-of-the-year screen on students. But at the beginning of the year, it gets like sort of baseline data, and then also that'll help us identify any students that need to meet with our counselors immediately. And then at the end of the year, we can see how much growth there've been along certain dimensions. And at the secondary level, we also have some universal screeners that we're going to be using. And I had mentioned to the school committee at our retreat that there's a group called the Riverside Trauma Center, and the Riverside Trauma Center really specializes in helping counselors work with students who are experiencing trauma, and sort of giving our counselors the tools to be able to work with that specific population of students. They will be around working in the buildings as we're using the screeners at the secondary level, so that they can, help us immediately, like do some interventions if need be. But anyhow, those are just some of the things that I wanted you to know about that we're doing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you. It's really good to hear what's going on,
Good.
that aspect of our schools.
Director of Finance and Administration, Dave, do you have anything to share?
Thank you. Just a brief update on transportation. Continually meeting with bus company NRT. I think it would benefit them and us to say that they are doing the best they can. Myself and the transportation team are working with NRT to really assess routing and capacity optimization. Some of our questions are capacity on certain buses versus capacity on others, where some buses seem more full than others, and are they strategically approaching the district the way we think is the most optimal. So we're going to continue working on that. And I do want to give a big shout out to the transportation team, asking the right questions, probing where they should, and really making NRT bring their best foot forward to the table when it comes to, serving our community. So I think that's really nice. The only other quick add, I would just wanted to say that we did put a posting out to the community related to additional drivers to help us offset some of that the bus stress. Initial response after a few hours of the posting was that about 10 to 12, a dozen or so candidates came forward with interest. We are planning to check in, or I'm planning to check in with Jackie tomorrow of NRT to find out where we are number-wise, but initial read was that we had some high interest and people were very interested. I would imagine out of the dozen or so, a handful will drop out, but again, we're going to re-gauge where we are tomorrow, and I'll provide the committee with an update.
That's great, thank you. And I think if people apply for positions like that and they're accepted, that NRT pays for all their training.
So the training, what we'll do from a training perspective, the hours of training we'll probably try to support internally through us as a good faith effort. But because Westborough compensates their drivers so highly compared to other districts, I don't know if that was, the interest, but again, I think it'll serve the community in a greater magnitude going forward, just having potential drivers being, licensed and certified as capable to do that. But again, as an effort to put our best foot forward, we'll probably sponsor the training of those handful that facilitate out.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Any questions about that? Great. We'll move on to our school committee member reports. Hi, Andrew. What do you have from the schools?
Okay, so first off, today was the International Walk to School Day, which all the students who participated were able to do so successfully and smoothly. At the high school, there are plans underway for the Homecoming Dance and Homecoming Festival. The festival will be on October 23rd, and the dance will be on the 22nd. And this is kind of a nice return to normalcy after almost like 2 years of no official dances. So this is a big deal at the high school. So also the student council is organizing events to show their appreciation for teachers, cafeteria workers, janitors, and secretaries. And this Sunday at Chauncey Field, the Best Buddies will be having their Massachusetts Down Syndrome Congress Walk in support of students with Down syndrome. And the Hastings Fall Festival was October 1st, and that was a lot of fun with a lot of outdoor activities, a book fair and ice cream trucks for the elementary students. And just this Saturday was the Arts and Commons Festival at Bay State Commons, which NHS had volunteers helping out with. And finally, Armstrong is super excited to kick off their Fun Run program on October 12th, which they have the goal of raising $20,000 for enrichment programs and community events. And that's all I have for today.
Yeah. Sarah?
Yes, I was going to mention the International Walk to School Day as well. We had a very successful day. Hastings, Fales, and Armstrong all participated today, and it was a great turnout, great weather, lots of kids walking to school using active transportation, so we love that. So thank you to everyone who participated. Everyone got stickers and signed banners, and I think it was a great event. Mill Pond is going to do it tomorrow. As the students get off the bus, they're going to take a tour around the, I don't know if it's the parking lot or the field it's hard to walk to Mill Pond, as we know, sidewalk issues and things like that. So they're going to give them a modified walk. And I know Gibbons had, obviously they already have walkers and had put, all the safe routes to school information in their news and notes and the resources for families about safe walking and biking. So thank you everyone for your efforts with that. I'm going to mention, if no one else is, because I went first, that Fales is having a stroll down memory lane event on Sunday, October 24th. So anyone feeling nostalgic for the Fales school can go see the real school on Sunday, October 24th from 11 to 2, open house. Everyone in town's invited, so come on in and take a look. And then Mill Pond Parent Group is having a little fall festival event this Thursday evening from 4 to 6, just games and family fun, and bring your own snacks and drinks and hang out at Mill Pond. So I think they're looking for a good turnout for that as well.
Yeah, there's been some.
Steve, yeah. Sorry.
That's in the old building. That's
Yeah,
the
the old
nostalgia
building.
part.
This
The new
one.
building will be later.
That's the memory
I know,
lane
they knew
part
what I
of it.
meant when they said
Yeah.
the building.
One last chance to walk through
Last
the old
chance.
Fales building, yeah, yep. So we hope that everyone in the community who, is still here, who went to Fales, can come on by and remember your elementary or upper elementary school classrooms. I think at one time it housed like 5th and 6th grade too, right? Yeah, yeah. And I think all those events that you mentioned, Sarah and Andrew, there's been some really great turnout from parents and families coming out for especially the Hastings Fall Festival. I just saw some pictures with some really great turnout, so I'm looking forward to that one at Mill Pond as well. Raghu, anything?
Yeah, I don't have anything tonight.
Okay, thanks. Lisa?
I don't have anything except for to say the bus app will be coming. We had mentioned October 1st, but it's not ready yet. They're basically putting in all the information necessary to really get us up and running, and for a couple of us to demo it before it goes out to parents, which was our request a few weeks ago. We're still waiting on it, and when that comes, we'll review, and hopefully it'll be a quick turnaround.
Steve, do you have anything other than Fales building?
I'll defer to, for the building discussion.
Okay, thank you. So since we, so my report, I was ahead of myself. I just wanted to share that as a school committee, we held a retreat on Monday, and I want to thank Andrea Macknick for helping us organize the day. It was a very productive time for us to be together, and we will share a draft of the goals that we wrote for ourselves later on in this meeting, and those were a result of the work that we examined and discussed at our retreat. So it was a great day to be together and just kind of set some goals for the work of the school year. Right now, I would, on the agenda, call forward citizens' requests, if anyone would like to come forward. Seeing no one. Just as a reminder, we have citizens' requests on our agenda for any community members who want to come forward and share something with the school committee. So I'm going to skip ahead. Daniel, would you be ready to do MCAS? Sure. Okay, great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, let me get this one up here. So interesting, obviously, to present on MCAS results in the midst of COVID. You know, we all know there's some history here. The MCAS, last spring there was a lot of hand wringing. Would they ask us to do MCAS? Wouldn't they? Could they please not? I guess we have to do it. And then it was like, oh, and we have to do it for kids who are at home too. So we had to do remote MCAS for a number of our students. So there were all kinds of things that were thrown at us last year. And the MCAS redesigning how it would be administered was one of them. So I'm going to give you some, it's not your typical MCAS report. So the first part of the report here is an overview of what I want to go through. The first part is going to be talking about the COVID scores and the question about the validity and some of the concerns that even the Department of Education has pointed out to us. And the more usual part of the presentation is talk about our demographic data, make sure people understand the difference between achievement versus growth scores, and then present to you the findings for our students. And we'll open up for discussion. So the Department of Education has, they issued with the MCAS the following caveats, and these are direct quotes, that because the students in grades 3 through 8 were given one session of the test instead of 2 sessions, individual student performance may vary more than usual as compared to previous years. It's important for parents to realize that if there's a swing in their student's score, especially if it goes down, not to panic, because that's what they're saying here, is that anytime from a psychometric perspective, you have less items on a test, you have less reliability as to what the score is going to be on the test. So they have the amount of time that grades 3 through 8 students spent taking the test, means half the number of items. It means the precision of the test goes down, particularly at the individual level. So DESE says, caution there. But then they go on and they say DESE will not be releasing district comparison tools as in previous years. Caution should be exercised when making comparisons across districts and across schools within the same district. I mean, they do say look at school level data, look at district level data. It'll be more accurate because when you aggregate up a bunch of results from, even though there's less items per student, you do have more accuracy, obviously, when you have several hundred students taking the test. But they still are giving us cautionary notes here about comparing ourselves to other districts. And they say also that they're not going to issue updated district and school accountability document determinations this fall. So clearly, they're being very cautious with their data, which that's good. I think there's additional caveats I want to give you, and I already alluded to the fact that we have about 15% of our students took the exam from home. I don't know whether that means that, at some point we can analyze that data, I guess, to see if those students scored better because they were at home or worse because they were at home. I mean, theoretically, it's more comfortable setting. Then again, mom could be handing flashcards up like this. I mean, who knows what was happening at home? We were theoretically proctoring the exam remotely. So, it's 15% of our students. All of our 10th grade students were required to come in and take the exam. because that exam is considered an exit exam. I mean, there were a few medical exemptions, but it was nothing, I mean, it might have been 1% that were like, so the data there, you could say, for 10th grade, is more robust or more reliable because they didn't shorten the testing time and the kids took it in person. So I caution, it's only one measure of performance. Any year we look at the MCAS scores, it's just one measure of performance, and it's not the be-all and end-all. And, therefore, we are still assessing. We're in the beginning of the school year. We're assessing our students. We're particularly, we're focused on the kids who are in kindergarten, first, second grade. They're not even tested by MCAS, and how, looking at their reading levels and their math ability. So I can give you more of an update on those dimensions later in another report. I think it's really very important to keep in mind there's a push in the state to accelerate learning. And I think when you look at our results, that you'll see them in a few minutes, that the students are really doing quite well in our district, and that focusing on accelerating learning is not in their best. When we're talking about mental health, the mental health of the students is what we are primarily interested in. We want them to learn, but this year we want them to get back into normal routines and not make school into something that they don't enjoy and that they ultimately would end up being worse off because we're accelerating learning and doing things that will cause more problems in the long run. So I think it's important that, that we temper our emphasis on working on learning loss with focusing on mental health issues. So as I present the data, usually I will do what we've done in the past in terms of comparing ourselves to our past scores in terms of gains over time, but also comparing ourselves to other districts at the 10th grade level. I will not do that. I will honor what the state said not to do in grades 3 through 8. But I will give you some windows into how we're doing both over time and compared to other communities. So at the 10th grade level, these are the communities that we benchmark ourselves against at all levels. Usually when we do the benchmarking, these were the communities that are agreed upon both by the whole town in terms of like the fire and the police and other town services. We had several years ago, got together and looked at towns that are similar size and offer similar types of services and have similar quality in terms of their education performance of their students. And the town had some criteria, and we had some criteria that we used in selecting them. So those are the towns. Now, again, achievement versus growth. Achievement is a mark that's set at a given point in time. What percent meet that mark at that point in time? 80% got proficient or advanced, let's say, or I guess now they've changed the terminology to percent meeting or percent exceeding the standard on the test in one particular year. But student growth is a measure of how students have done over time. So you may be failing on your test in 7th grade, but then you took another test in 9th grade or 8th grade, and then you go from failing to meeting. That you're measuring what percent of your population, how many students are growing over time and just improving. And that's a way they put that measure in there, the state did, the student growth measure, purposefully, so that students coming from disadvantaged communities or backgrounds are not penalized in terms of, they may not be advanced, but they've made significant progress. And that's both for the students and the teachers and the school systems to know that they're making progress with those students. So that leads into the importance of looking at demographic factors, and the expectations often are for high need students that like low income students. Oh, I figured I'm using the slides in front of me.
Oh, I was going to say.
Somebody could have told me.
Well, I
that's
didn't know
okay.
how far you were on a roll, and I wasn't sure.
Nope,
So-
that's fine. Sorry.
Okay.
It's what happens when I have my screen showing me one thing. But so here is the
I'm
difference.
usually sitting next to you and I would have tapped
You
you,
go like
sorry.
this. Sorry.
We are following.
You're following, good.
Yeah.
People
We're
at
not even
home,
looking
people
at
at home are just, that's okay. I mean, you sharpen the listening skills. So the high need students are categorized by the Department of Education as low income students, special needs students, and ELL or English language learner students. And like I was saying, the achievement levels will often be lower for those students, but the growth can be the same as a typical student because you're measuring, when they measure growth for students who had a similar academic performance at a prior point in time. So they're basically, in some ways, that's what it's called, like, doing a kind of regression analysis. They're factoring out the background characteristics. So here's some slides that show you the demographics of the benchmark communities. It's just important to keep in mind that we have some difference in terms of our demographics and some of our than our peer communities that we're comparing ourselves to. Like there are some communities that have very small percentages of Ls or ELL students, where we're up at the top in terms of the percent, where we have about 11%. Hudson's the only community in the benchmark communities that has more. Lexington and Belmont are close to us in terms of that, and then the percents go down. Then this is the percent economically disadvantaged, and this is a measure of poverty. And again, there are communities obviously in the state that are much, much higher, but among these, sort of comparison districts, we're up towards the top, third here. In terms of having 13% of our students that are low income, and then percent special needs, we're really right in the middle. Then those are the three different, characteristics of high needs that the growth scores will factor out, the achievement scores. So our achievement scores theoretically should, what's the right way to put this? The achievement scores are often depressed because of the higher the percentage of these categories in different communities. So if you look at communities with 50% poverty, it's not necessarily a reflection of like the educational quality of the district so much as is a reflection of the needs of the students and the background of the students. So the only reason I put that before you is it's, again, why we use a growth score statistic in addition to achievement statistic. And this percent high needs is the rolling up of the students in all three categories. So when we say Westborough is 38% high needs, this is a combination of ELL, poverty, and special needs students. So 38% of our students would fall into that category. So let me now get into looking at the math scores in particular, and start with the grades 3 through 8. So I've broken out the slides into grades 3 through 8 versus grades 10, and the first slide here is looking over time, and looking at 2019. Remember 2020, there was no test, to 2021, looking at Westborough, and you can see that the blue and the green together make up the percent of students that are exceeding or meeting expectations. So about 84%, but 84% of our students were meeting or exceeding expectations in mathematics in grades 3 through 8 in 2019. And what you see here is this is the one slide that'll make you a little bit nervous of the whole entire presentation, as you definitely see a dip going from 84% down to 63%. So that basically the orange partially meeting expectations bar goes up substantially from 14% to 30%. Failing, or not meeting expectations goes from 1 to 7%. So that's an area that across the state has been is an issue, and in Westborough too. Now, it does give some solace to look at how Westborough did compared to the state average, and this is what this slide shows, and basically this is showing you how, on the left, it's the percent, this is it is all in 2021, it's the percent of students that are scoring in Westborough is on the left and the state is on the right in these different categories, and so we have 63%, as I said, lower than by our historic averages, but compared to the state is at 34%. So there's a big difference between, 64% and 34%. So we're well above the state average in terms of how our students are doing. 7%, as I said, are not meeting expectations, but at the state level, that's 22% that are not meeting expectations. So that's the roughest part of the presentation, and we'll talk a little bit about the context in a bit. But I want to move on now to the 10th grade numbers. And if you look at 10th grade, interestingly, the story is quite different in that rather than go down, our numbers went up. So from 2019 to 2021, we generally look at the exceeding expectations rather than combining exceeding and meeting, but you can combine the two too. But the story in exceeding expectations, we went from 31% to 43% in exceeding expectations, and so that's over a 10 percentage point increase in our scores over that period of time. I think that there's a few things going on there. It's terrific news. Yeah, thank you.
I thought you were going to make a summation.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think, what's going on there is it's just, it's easier to teach remotely to students at a high school level that kind of content that they need to learn on their own. That might be some of it, but I think the 10th grade exam is a roll-up. And this is the most important part, I think, is it's a roll-up of everything they've learned since kindergarten to 10th grade, as opposed to the 8th grade exam or the 7th grade exam is just focused on the content for that year. So the content for a single year is very, specific. And so that test in 7th grade covers whatever it is that if they were supposed to go over, identifying very unknown variables in that year, and didn't get to that part of the curriculum in 7th grade, then on the test it would be a bigger hit in terms of not succeeding, where in 10th grade there's less of that sort of being linked just 1 year's worth of
Yeah,
learning.
it's hard to know too, because, if they had given the same number of days testing, we could make some generalizations, but this is the only test that was standardized the same against the 2019 test. So same number of days, same number of problems. And I think your earlier stats around the impact of that when you shorten the number of items is relevant. So it's hard to posture around how our other students would have done if we'd had the same length of tests and more test items.
Yeah,
But
although
I
it's pretty
certainly
clear that we couldn't get through the entire curriculum last
there's
year
no
in grade
doubt,
levels.
yeah.
And so we're hearing, students don't recognize some of the things that they would have generally recognized when they're being presented with, two-digit multiplication.
Right. However, but we didn't standardize against what we decided to cull out of curriculum versus what the state decided to test. So we made our own decision. This is a very interesting kind of route. We could go on and on about data. We both like it. But
So one
yeah.
observation is 2 years from now, when those 8th grade
Right, that's the
turns to
relevant
10th
measure.
grade, then we may have to do some work to get them caught up before you roll up.
So I anticipate that they're going to get caught up pretty well this year. We'll know by next fall how it is, but I go back to my original, point, which is, I think when we see that 63% of our kids are meeting expectations and very, very, very small percentage are in that not meeting expectations. So the fact that we have a higher percentage in partially meeting than we usually do, I'm confident that those kiddos that are in partially meeting are going to move up in large numbers next year.
Yeah, I would agree.
But you're right, we need to keep an eye on it. So the other piece I want to point out again is the difference between the state and Westborough on grade 10. Just like I did with 3 through 8, you can see that 84% of our grade 10 students are meeting or exceeding expectations compared to the state having 52% that are meeting or exceeding. So substantially, if you look at exceeding 43% versus 11%, those are big differences. The growth score numbers are very informative too, the exceeding expectations. So this is going into the benchmark communities. Amber, you're smiling?
No, I'm good. I was sidebarring my competitive nature.
Okay. I knew you were. I knew you were.
Not for public discourse.
There's sports. There's academics.
There's Amber's view on the world of competitive.
Yeah. So this is basically, and mind you, this is not a growth score. This is a performance score. So it's not factoring out differences in demographics. So this is basically saying that 49% of Lexington students scored exceeded expectations, 43% of Westborough students exceeded expectations, and so on going down. So we basically outperformed 12 of the 13 different benchmark communities that are there.
In this graph, 2019, everybody went way down. But
They did.
2019,
Right.
Does anybody remember why?
They changed
Yes. Kristen,
They calibrated the test.
they did. So they actually.
Doing too well.
Okay.
Yeah. But yes, everybody went down. They basically recalibrated the test. And what you can see too by looking at those bars, the difference between the green and the blue over time, you can see that, Westborough really grew substantially. And Lexington had some growth too, but the reason, we were, I don't remember exactly where, we were fairly high up before, but this is, that's a very good showing. It's impressive.
Sorry, do they keep the test? So I know the recalibration made me think this. Did they keep the test the same last year? Like they kept this similar rigor to 2019?
Theoretically.
They didn't take out anything because people didn't cover that or anything.
One day instead of 2 for typical.
No, 10th grade was 2 days.
2 days, but the other tests were, if you typically had a 2-day math test, it was just 1 day.
Yeah,
Right.
but this is the 10th grade.
Yeah.
But if you compare the 2019, 2021 of these 13, of these towns, you can sort of see that they're fairly comparable.
Yeah.
So you sort of get a sense that they were not calibrated
I
again.
did them
Yeah.
the same.
It just
Right.
the bottom line score went down, but the comparison was
Yeah.
the same.
Be proud, right?
All
Yeah.
right. Yes.
So, and then this is looking at the growth data, basically growth is historically the median in the state is 50 on growth. This year it's all depressed. And our district has tended to be, our median growth rate by grade level had been 60. There are very few 60 that we've gotten. It's hard to interpret it other than just, it's not a percent, it's just, basically the higher the growth number, it means the more you grew relative to your historic past, accounting for demographic differences. So Westborough, again, is, in terms of growth, we are, there are 10 districts that didn't have growth as high as ours, so that we're pleased about that too. So now I'm going to move over to ELA. And, like I had said, for math in grades 3 through 8, there is definitely an issue, what I think has to do with coverage and topics, because it's so discrete and builds upon, each concepts will build upon one another. In English language arts, it's not really the same. You're just, you're learning to read throughout the year. It's not as lockstep in terms of coverage. Each unit of English doesn't, sort of lead to a big bump in terms of learning. Like if you missed, like I was saying before, fractions, if you didn't get to the fractions unit, you're gonna, like in all the fractions on the test are gonna look like a foreign language to you, but the same phenomena doesn't exist in ELA. And so, lo and behold, our numbers just didn't really, there was a minor dip in terms of ELA. So we had, just make sure I'm looking at the right thing here, that 77% of our students, if you add together the two highest categories, exceeding and meeting expectations. In 2019, it went down to 72% in 2021. And the difference in terms of the number not meeting expectations didn't change at all. So, the one area that it basically, there's just a higher, the percentage points that went up was just in the partially meeting expectations category. And then again, comparing ourselves to the state, we have 72% meeting or exceeding. It's at the state level, it's 44% meeting or exceeding. And now looking at grade 10, again in grade 10, we see an increase in the percent in our exceeding category, going up from 31% to 43%. And then when you look at the state comparing ourselves, we are at 88% meeting or exceeding expectations in ELA and grade 10 versus 64% at the state level meeting or exceeding. And then when you're looking at comparisons to our benchmark districts, Westborough is up in the top third. So 10 of 13 are lower than us. And when we look at the growth scores, we're in the middle of the pack with the growth scores. 7 of 13 are lower. So, overall, to summarize here, our students missed a year and a third of schooling, of the traditional kind of schooling that is the most impactful. So they had to interrupt it and definitely suboptimal kind of conditions for their schooling. And to the extent that, we believe the MCAS scores, I think there's something there that is reflective of we have to take it with a grain of salt, but I think that it gives some indication, and it should feel good that our ELA performance really didn't, it only had a small dip in grades 3 through 8 and a nice increase in grade 10. But over the 2-year period, our math performance decreased substantially, but the 10th grade performance in grades 3 through 8 and the 10th grade performance improved nicely. Again, Amber and I could debate this for a while, whether it's the reliability of the test, kids taking it home, or lack of coverage in terms of being able to get to particular test items. I think that a full year of learning will, as we move into this school year, that a full year of learning without changing our pacing should result in a nice bounce back. I'm very confident of that. And, we will do catch-up work, but again, the mental health of our students is really paramount here, and I want to make sure that we don't, and send that message out to parents. I think parents I would hope support us in that, they want their kids to want to come to school. And we have lots of school anxieties and we have a lot of behaviors that we've seen that we're more worried about on the social emotional front in terms of the maturity of the school, of the kids coming in, their ability to settle down, to raise their hands to get on the lines and sort of conform to what it's like to be in school. They're used to being at home and being able to get a snack and do whatever it is that they want when they want it, and that's the biggest challenge that we're facing right now. And it's not astronomical, but it is important to know we're a month, more than a month into the school year, and we're dealing, more concerned about those issues right now than we are with the academic issues.
I was describing it today to someone when I said, when you watch students move through a building in Westborough, there's kind of it's almost like a school of fish. They kind of move as a unit, like groups, classes move as a unit, kids move through the hall and kind of like this kind of like steady flow kind of mechanism, especially our younger kids. They're coming and going to classes in a group, and there's a group identity to kind of how they move. And right now, when you go in the buildings, it's fine, but you feel it's all these individuals moving. Like there's just a very different feel in the energy, and you can see that the individual framework and the isolation. And if 40% of our elementary students were a year and a third away from us with a summer in between, 2 summers. It's a long time since they had to be in a school group and move in a schooled group, and the feel of the classrooms is different. So it's something we're all kind of like, you're pulling your whole, all of your repertoire kind of review and mechanism for. There's a lot of good discussion going on with it right now as we think about responding and giving kids time to reframe that. And it's a different version for each age level, like how it feels and what it is. And so, we'll be writing and communicating about it, because I think we need parents to do work they haven't had to do in a while, in some ways, to reinforce that school behavior expectations. And, those are the types of things where we're a team-oriented group for stuff like that. So I'm very pleased overall with how we did. I'd say there was no surprises there and anything we would have expected. I think I would agree with Daniel that our students will recover academically across the span of this year, and that the next sets of benchmarks we use to look at will give us guidance. This is work we know how to do well, and I'm pretty confident that our teachers feel like we're in good shape.
Questions, comments?
Questions, yeah. Yeah, my comment is that the focus on mental health is the right thing to do at this point. And getting kids in the right mindset and rediscover the joy of learning is more important than trying to cram all the syllabus that was missed, all the subjects and coursework that was missed during the year. I think, Madam Chair, can I ask, is there any way we can, as a school committee, support that approach to the administration? Is there any way we can, take a vote or do something?
We do have it as part of our goals for next school year. So, this school year. So when we take a look at those towards the end of the meeting, if, we want to change that language there or do something stronger, we can, but.
We'll be putting out to the community probably a communication tomorrow or Friday, which will capture this. We'll attach the update plus the other updates we do tonight on the things that are on the agenda. And so we certainly will reiterate the strength of comments from the school committee in favor of, our focus on mental health and joy of learning being our primary return for the year.
So the part that comes to mind when I hear that as our priority is, and I've heard it certainly from Superintendent and Daniel, it's that the mental health services or the SEL that goes through our system is integrated into the curriculum, meaning that as they're learning the academics, the social emotional learning part is integrated. So therefore, it's not that you're going to push the academics aside. It's not that we still don't emphasize that. We do. It's that those are two that go hand in hand, and that, looking out for our children's mental health is a high priority, and that when teachers think about, can I cover all this curriculum that they're trying to catch them up on, the teachers themselves, to give themselves a break, because that high standard of achieving all the curriculum when we've but been slowed down for the past year and a third, I think we all have to be a little bit more forgiving with ourselves and recognize that these teachers are doing an exceptional job when it comes to trying to get ourselves back to the norms, looking out for our students' mental health, and integrating the curriculum all with it, and going at a pace that's reasonable, which is really hard to do when you have very high expectations to reach some, element of academic goal. And I want to just reiterate to teachers out there that we see you doing an extraordinary job, and that we don't really expect you to have them all caught up within a year necessarily, because there are so many aspects to this that go hand in hand. And just keep in mind that the expectation, I think, at least for myself as a school committee member, is that there's a lot being asked of you, and that we recognize that you're doing the best you can. Yeah.
I think too, and I'm sure Andrew could comment to this, we were talking informally about it at the beginning, the workload is picking up, so, we are covering curriculum. I think teachers are being astute, to your point, Lisa, about shifting their pacing guides and shifting the weight of work to the right place, and that what we know about strong mental health and joy for learning is that it allows students to cover content successfully, but you really do regain a capacity to move more quickly and to take in learning more effectively when your emotional state is in a good place. So it's like you go slow to go far, right? So right now we're going slow to go far. We're slowing down, and we're giving the opportunity to let students reacclimate appropriately and shifting our pacing guides such that we can go far across the span of the year. So I have a lot of confidence that we'll close out with good news on both, academic recovery work as well as social emotional.
Yeah, I also think, so I remember last year sometime during the middle, near midterms, there was time taken out during class to have a discussion with teachers and students about mental health. And I think just taking the time to let students share what they're going through, like how they're managing their time, things like that. Especially now with course loads picking up, everyone trying to transition back into normal school. I think that would be really helpful to have teachers do that again. Maybe not even a whole period, maybe just some 10 or 15 minutes.
No, thank you.
Check-ins would be really helpful.
Yep, I agree. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Daniel, for that thorough, I'm sure, like you said, we could spend all night just talking about that data and analyzing it. And that will be shared with the community, and then scores are being prepared to be mailed out to parents and caregivers too. So
They should be out in the mail by Friday.
Okay, and thank you to all the school staff preparing that, because it's not an easy job.
Yep.
So we're going to bounce back to our HMFH Fails project update on our agenda, and we're so excited to see you again. Oh, actually, there's another.
Julie, there's a problem.
We're going to have you use a different.
So,
I thought we're going to give you that cord instead.
I have to give you this.
Okay.
So it's going to be.
It was giving us
Reach
trouble.
over.
So,
Barely reaches over to. I have to switch.
Julia Nugent with HMFH is always exciting to have her with us. One of the chief architects on the design of the Fails School and implementation, and longstanding partner over now multiple years. And so a nice opportunity to turn it over to her and let her update you on the project.
I recognized the spelling error up here. As soon as I opened up, I realized I had spelled committee wrong. But I'm glad to be here. We're at a really exciting stage for the project. And I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview of where our goal is and where we are today. This is the site plan with the new site plan with the new school on the left-hand side and new parking and bus drop-off on the right-hand side with the play field. It doesn't look like that yet, but this is, let's see if I get that. This is as of Saturday, I believe, or Sunday. It's been amazing what they've been able to do with a school, 30 feet away from them, and hopefully Marianne has survived with her crew. And so you can see the red fence there around the existing building, and the play area that's to the right there is the amount of school that the amount of space the school has had. On the right-hand side, where you're seeing trucks and a lot of dirt, that is where we've been installing the geothermal wells, which are the heating and cooling system, and it's a big part of our sustainable energy approach to the project. And then beyond that, where you can't see right now, is the new playground. 2 new playgrounds are going in, one for the, I believe, the kindergartners, and one for the 1st through 3rd graders. So they'll be sort of just right off to the right. Actually, I could go back. You'll see above the parking area of the new parking. So the one on the right-hand side there and the play field are not in the old school footprint, and the one in the left-hand side is essentially where the school is right now. So this fall, when the school transitions, let me just go back to, so here's where we are. Actually, one more aerial, so you can see from the backhand side, the new parking lot where the dumpster is there, that's the drop-off. The kids enter down that set of stairs through the courtyard into the entry at the end of the stairs there, and then you can see an accessible route of a kind of winding path around that courtyard. And you can see here all of this was probably about 90% of the solar photovoltaics were up on the roof at this point. You can see on the opposite side of the roofs from the solar, you can see the clear story windows that bring light into the inside of the building. So this fall, when the school transitions, this will become the entry for the school and how all students will enter. The buses will use this as the drop-off loop this fall, or whenever it is that we're moving. In November when we're moving, when you are moving. The parents drop off, I mean, I'm sure Marianne will get into details of this, so I don't need to go into details, but she is working through all the details to make sure that that's all working, relatively cleanly, that there's a lot of communication to the parents about the new routine and what they need to do when they're bringing their kids, when they're picking them up in the afternoon. The far parking lot that's down Eli Whitney is now operational. That's the new parking lot, and teachers are parking there that'll be teachers parking. It is right now, and it will remain teachers parking in the spring. You can't quite see from the aerial, like if you were a little bit further out, there's more parking up near this entry. So there's maybe 20 spaces of parking in that area, so parents can park and bring a kid in or go in to pick up a kid from this area. So this will all be buttoned up and seeded, or sod will go in. The trees are going in, all the curbing, and it's all happening very quickly, but we anticipate all of this to be clean and public ready within the next couple of weeks. And they'll be done with everything on the roof and everything on the far side of the site will still remain construction for some amount of time. And let me just go into, there's 2 scenarios for the construction going forward from the fall after the school moves. We're trying to pin down exactly what the contractor is going to be able to turn over as of the school being turned over. So this is the less good scenario, which is that the kids will remain on the playground that is adjacent to the existing building. And that's the kind of suboptimal situation. The reason why that may occur is that some of the site work and the geothermal stuff is just taking longer, and we need to really get that right. So we can't, cap that area and build the new playground until we really have that right. So, so the fallback position for not, if we have some more continuing issues with that, will be that this will be the playground until they can finish the rest of the site. The better scenario, and the one we had, hoped to have, is that when the school is turned over, the the playground that is for the first through third graders would be available, and about half the play field would be available. We're still, certainly hoping for that, because it will make a big difference to the school, to the kids, but they will have somewhere outdoors to play in either case. What you can see is that the new construction zone is very close to the new building, and there's basically just an emergency access around that lower area. So on the top wing, the gymnasium is on the lowest level there, so the kids will be able to come out through an entrance next to the gym, be able to get to the play areas. The front lower area is the loading dock and administrative wing, and so the services and teachers will be able to enter there, but not parents and kids, basically, or visitors. So that's pretty much the scenario for the winter, basically. What's not entirely clear is how quickly they are going to be able to. It really is a weather-dependent thing after that point, because we're getting into December, January. Once they take the building down, they have to pave all of that whole bus loop and regrade it and pave all of that, and they have to wait until they can pave, basically. So that's the sort of hang-up for the next step, is that they can't pave in the middle of the winter. Once that happens, they get the new bus loop in, this can all come down. I don't think we anticipate any of this really being super cleaned up before the end of school, though. It just seems like there are too many things, and the benefit of opening it would really have to be a big benefit in order to try to stage any further opening. The one area I could see they might be able to open sooner is the second playground. And I only say that because it's not where the paving, it's not where the bus paving is. And of course, we'll continue to work with the contractors to try to release as much as possible, as soon as possible, with safety as the absolute primary issue. And with that, I just wanted to show you some new photos. This is all total snapshots, not professional photography, this is the plan. Let me just orient you slightly with the plan. So on the right-hand side, you're seeing the lower level, where the cafeteria and main entry are in the middle. The administration wing is in the green there. That's towards Eli Whitney. The gymnasium in purple is up towards the woods. When you're upstairs, you see the sort of courtyard area, the entrance off of the courtyard, where you see you're next to the makerspace and the art room and the music room and the library. So all of those sort of public spaces are all together in the center there. To the north of that is the kindergarten and first grade wing, and to the south is the second and third grade classrooms. So from that, I just want to give you some images of, so this is the lower level entry, which will not be open this fall, but it'll be tidying up, but it just isn't open because of the way the construction zone is. One of the challenges here, from a design point of view, is because of the hill, this is a really tall building for kids, for little kids. And so we were really focused on trying to make more intimate entries and, places for those kids. So this is a little deceptive because the paving's not in there, and that'll raise everything up a little bit, but there's a bench underneath that wood there. The idea that you'd be staying and waiting for your parents or, whatever, so you could be out from under the rain. So sort of welcoming, not overscaled, basically, so kids wouldn't feel, do you have a question or? No, okay. Yeah. This is the entry from the upper level where the eventually it'll become the majority parent drop-off, and the lower level will be the bus drop-off in the final thing. So you enter in here, and it's at the end of that courtyard. And when you go through, this is sort of how you enter the building. You see right through the library. And what I love about this is you're really above the trees, so it's a really tremendous view, and will just be great in the fall. And very messy construction zone right here, but the idea is that you really get this sense of transparency of the building and welcoming, a lot of daylight, and
We all do.
from a sustainability point of view, these are little kids. They're not necessarily going to understand solar and daylight and all that. But I think that the message will come through to them in some sort of way, and I hope that's the case. So these are some of the project areas that are in the middle of the building. So one of the things about classroom space or any kind of school is that you want to get as much daylight into the teaching spaces as possible. So even though this doesn't have any exterior windows to the wall, we get a tremendous amount of daylight from above. So really, the lights are on, but this space is really primarily daylit. So what you're seeing here on the right-hand side is, I believe this is the third grade project area. So the 5 third grade classrooms kind of open out into this space. And on the left-hand side, there's a big marker board and a projection screen will be there. This casework, some kids can sit at the casework and work. There's storage, so we can have, whether it's projects kids are working on or science kits or however the grade level teachers want to use it. So that's what you're seeing there with the casework. And on the right-hand side, what's not there yet, and I'll show you in a couple minutes, is on the right-hand side under the clear story is a big mural. And each of the project areas have a big mural that are sort of themed around different natural settings, essentially. And then the right-hand side is just a long shot of a corridor, really, but it's kind of through the front of the building where you're sort of seeing several skylights in a row. And the project area is just a little beyond in this image. And there are places to sit and, kind of pull out and do, for kids to do reading together or, one-on-ones with teachers, so these it's a little hard to see from this, but, little nooks that come off of the corridor are meant for that sort of pull-out work that is either with, a couple students doing something together or a teacher with a student in addition to this project area, which is a little more of a group thing. I don't have any pictures of any of the other internal rooms, but they're basically small group rooms that are unassigned, so teachers they don't have a person in there all day long, so they can be assigned however you want them to be assigned in terms of, and then there are several rooms that are, math, literacy, speech, all the different kind of specials that you would need. And then the other special ed rooms are right adjacent to the classrooms, basically, in these two different wings. This is an entry. This just got put in. I was really excited to see this finally, but this is the entry to the gym. And one of the things we were trying to do is make sure we left some fun stuff in here after we were going through, a lot of painful trying to make the costs work. And Amber was a huge advocate for making sure we did this. So these are the famous leaves that made it into the project. So each of those main entries has on the floor a kind of, this random pattern of leaves that pick up the colors that are in the rest of the building. Again, just trying to make it a more kid-like space. And of course, we have a big gym, so that's just being tied up right now. And it looks bigger probably than it is. It's not a huge gym, but it's big compared to what they have right now, and it's a really good size for this age group.
Our entire community is excited to have another gymnasium space.
Yeah.
It'll be heavily used.
Yeah, it is. So you can see that there's a regular long court. The long dimension is an adult level court. And then the side ones are the half courts. I don't know if it's the side ones or both. The side ones, the hoops drop, so you can have them much lower for kids, but you can raise them up to adult height, basically. I think the ones at the ends are only the adult height. There's sleeves in the floor for the volleyball posts, so this is set up to be multiple things. There's a divider curtain that isn't in here right now, but you can pull across so that they can have two different events happening. And then what you see on the left-hand side, those two brown things are actually really large TV monitors. And there will be a big projector that projects towards the end of the room that we're standing at right now. So the idea would be that this, could become a really good all-school event space or any kind of event space but it has a pretty robust AV system. So just trying to make sure that this has the multiple levels of use that you're going to be interested in doing. And this is the area that's the least finished right now, which is the cafeteria platform stage area. So this is standing in the cafeteria, looking towards the stage. You can see some riser steps there that lead up to the platform. During the day, this would have a door that closes and is an acoustic door, and there's a music room inside of that space. So you can see at the back there's a music blackboard and storage for instruments. So this is actually not technically the music room, because this is more oriented towards the string program that they're doing, and then it will also be used for whatever you want to do, performances, meetings, however that's going to be done. And again, this has a pretty robust AV system so that it can be used for however you want to use it for the school or community uses. And this, what you're not seeing is that this has a very nice wood cladding and kind of nice ceilings and all that aren't in yet. And at the other end of the cafeteria, again, we're trying to sort of balance this big spaces and the needs of those things with little intimate spaces. So we have what we've been calling Hedgehog Dens, which are, and there are a couple of other ones I didn't show that are really too small for an adult to get into. But just basically places for kids to kind of climb in and feel a little bit more enclosed. And this actually is the windows here. This looks out to where the bus drop-off is. So the idea is that a kid could be watching for their parents or, from this area. And, from what I understand, after-school programs, would be held out of this space. So in fact, those cupboards there are for out-of-school program stuff. So we're, trying to think of the multiple types of uses that you might have throughout the day or year. This is the maker space, which is up on the upper level, and you can see the courtyard beyond through the windows. We're sort of in the main corridor looking through a display case where it'll have some shelves, glass shelves in there, and you can put things that kids make or whatever in this display case, but also see through into the room. And the curriculum for this at this age is very, just experimental and not really high tech. It's more, it's a more low tech version of a makerspace, but it should be, I think, a lot of fun for the school to develop, how this develops. And let's see, this is a shot of the upstairs music room. Oh no, this isn't. This is the art room, right? So all of the classrooms have some kind of a big skylight like this or clerestory area. And they're different from one another. So you kind of, when you go in, each one has a bit of a character, but they have great views, as you can see out the window, and a great deal of light into the back of the room, which is usually, much harder to light than the front of the room. And you can see it's somewhat of a neutral palette in this direction, and that's to try to, give space for the kids' stuff to sort of, come through and not feel like, you're fighting that. But on the other ends of the rooms, on the corridor ends of the rooms, there's a sort of color note here. There's a sort of a dropped ceiling area where you enter. There's the cubbies, windows out to the project spaces we were talking about earlier. So the classrooms have this little vibrant moment, but the teaching area is a little more neutral. So, that's a sort of a way to kind of keep it from getting, I guess, too crazy for the kids. And that's the photos, but I want to share with you also some of the murals. And I only have one on as to project here, but so this is in the cafeteria, and this is sort of an in-process thing, which is why this file's a little funky. But in the cafeteria, we have a really long wall, and the idea is that you go from sort of starting with the woods at one end, and then you kind of go into a meadow, and then into a wetland, and then down into a pond. And so, and that's the themes of the upstairs murals as well. One project area has a woods, one has a meadow, one has a wetlands, and one has a pond. And then there's the theme of Annie, who's the hedgehog, is kind of having these little adventures, which, so that's one of the ones in the cafeteria, and then the other cafeteria one here. Let me see if I can get this to go. This is kind of the middle, which has, these very, very large monarch, but, so that's something that's like 6 feet tall. So the idea of this is sort of playing with the scale was one of the fun things about it. And then the next one down has this sort of wetland pond area. And
I love it.
so we have these ones with Annie she's always showing up in her outfits,
I just love it.
So I have the other, so you can kind of see, at least if I can pull this over.
They're really beautiful.
Anyway, it goes down into the pond and you see fish and various things down there. So I have the other ones that are in the project area, but I don't have them to project. I have some images that I can leave for people. Anyway, it's been a lot of fun, and that's where we are with it.
Thank you so much for that update. It's been a while since we've seen a little peek behind the curtain, and we can obviously see what's happening on the outside, but to get a peek on what's going on the inside. Seeing all the skylights and everything, I was envisioning how bright and filled with sunlight it would be, but it looks like it's going to be pretty amazing, have a big impact on the students and the teachers.
I'm excited about it.
Does anyone have questions?
I had a quick question about the roof, since people have asked. I personally don't really have this question, but people have asked this, and they want to know how the snow removal will happen from this 21st century roof, which I assume, since it's a 21st century roof, that it would have a way to remove snow. Is that just part of its nature, or?
No, I think the flat roofs are really meant to hold the snow as it melts, and the white reflective, substance of that is part of how it melts is kind of reflecting back the light to that. It is designed so that the snow load is, how do I put it? It's kind of like protected like a bathtub, so the skylights are up above where the snow would be, and the photovoltaics are up above where the snow would be, basically. So the photovoltaics actually dump the snow very effectively off. They kind of just slide right off, and then, but the area where it lands is intended for it to, melt away. At the edges of the roof where people might be walking, we have a snow guard so that it falls off, but it doesn't like sheet off to, it kind of melts, it hits the edge and then it kind of, crumbles off the edge. But, it's a good question. It's kind of a really common one, but flat roofs are sort of what are the common construction right now. So, And they do have, just to get a little nerdy about it, there are 2 sets of drains. So if one set of drains gets clogged and it overflows, there's another overflow set that's entirely separate. So, there are some provisions like that allow it to have failure in one area and, have a foolproof way to solve that problem,
Okay, well, thank you for answering.
Sure.
I guess because people have only seen the outside.
Yeah.
That's why the
of
question has
course,
come up.
Yeah.
And, but thank you.
But to speak to the shape of the roof, the building code has different characteristics and loading based on the shape of the roof.
Yeah.
And in this case, since it doesn't leave, the design of the roof system is based on that total snow load laying in the valleys.
Yeah.
The other side of the coin is that solar panels do generate electricity once one corner is open. And so the snow will continually disappear from the solar panels as more and more of them are exposed.
And they heat up, right? Yeah.
So it's not a lot of heat, but it's enough to melt the snow that's on them.
And there's access to the roof, because one thing is the fire department and the crew, the maintenance crew need to get up there to deal with fans and other things. So the flat roof is actually, part of how they get up there and do that, so.
And I guess the other thing is there's nothing new about this particular shape of the roof. It's what many industrial buildings and factories in New England were designed for in order to get the excess light from one side and have water tightness on the other.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody wants to see these, or I'll leave them and people can kind of take a look at them. And
Thank you so much.
It wouldn't be fair to the public for us to see them and then.
I give you a taste with the cafeteria ones.
Thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Mrs.
coming
Standard.
and giving us a
Thank you.
picture of kind of where we are.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Julia,
one
can
step
we
at a
get that presentation? Can you send
Okay.
it? Just share it. We're going to go ahead and we'll be putting out an update to the community probably Thursday or Friday, so I'll include it and provide, additional. Perfect, thank you so much.
All right. The next item on our agenda is safe routes to school, so I'm going to turn it over to Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for putting this on the agenda. By now, we're all familiar with the Safe Routes to School program. It's something that's incorporated now in our town master plan, also in the climate action plan and our strategic plan. So we completed actually I wanted to acknowledge 2 of our partners here from the Active Transportation Committee, Nancy Siegel and Julie Squires, who have been instrumental in helping with this once we got back on our feet after COVID, so thank you. They are here as well. And in August, we completed the walk audit, I think I had mentioned that, and we got the report back from our outreach coordinator, Rachel O'Donnell. So I just wanted to bring it to school committee and walk you through it. And the Active Transportation Committee also has a copy of the report, and they discussed it at their meeting as well. And then we're going to get together after and discuss what we do with feedback from the Active Transportation Committee and feedback from the school committee and see what we can accomplish. So that's where we are now. So the report, thank you, Daniel, is up. Let's see, the participants, I think I mentioned at the time that the school principals were there, people from the Active Transportation Committee, myself, 2 of the parent group presidents from Armstrong and Gibbons, and Detective Japolate, our resource officer, was there as well, and Bob Ferguson from Buildings and Grounds. They provided us with these handy maps, if you want to just scroll, which show where our students at Armstrong and Gibbons arrive from and live in proximity to the school. And then we have our current, Rachel O'Donnell from Safe Routes to School went to our websites and pulled our current arrival and dismissal procedures and, information that was on our website relevant to arrival and dismissal and traffic flows. So that's our current Armstrong. And the current at Gibbons, I'm not sure if it was on the website, but we discussed that. a lot at our meeting. Anyone who's been at Gibbons during arrival and dismissal knows it can be quite a juggernaut, so there was a lot of discussion about that. And then keep going down, some of Rachel's and all of our observations from Gibbons, looking for bike racks. I think that's because it was the summer, but, and then there's a fire lane behind the school that we actually can't use for buses or cars. And then the parking lot, as anyone's familiar with Gibbons, is very divided, very sectional. So it's just hard to get a large flow through there in a consistent manner. Armstrong, they did have bike racks. Staff members kind of have to park all over because of, once again, not enough parking, and just the parking lots are very divided. The crosswalks are faded, and we found we were lacking some pedestrian signage. And then there's that short fire lane that connects from West Street into Armstrong that is to be reserved for a fire lane, but I know some people do drive down there. And then other observations along West Street, it's a heavily traveled street by all modes of transportation. And then on the other side, on Fisher Street, the crosswalks at Grant Road are painted in what they call a continental style, which is really just two lines. And so now there's kind of more that you can do with crosswalks to make them more visible. Cross lines, I forget all the terminology that she used, but different colors, yellow and white, and different stuff to make them more visible to drivers. And then back to West Street, there's that little sign by Whitney Street that says it's a one-way during certain hours. It's kind of small. Sometimes people don't notice it. You only notice that if you lived in Westborough forever, kind of thing. And then going over to Church Street, we have a contingency of walkers that come from I'll call it the more downtown area that go across Church Street, and that is just a heavily traveled street, lots of cars, all the buses come down there too, so just a lot going on there. And same thing with the crosswalks, they lack pedestrian signage and even the Eda Compliant Ramps, which I know the town has actually put a bunch of those in lately in different spots. And then back to Fisher Street, Church, Fisher, and Milk Street don't have the pedestrian signage. The sidewalk between West Street and Gibbons, we walked all along there, and it looks like it could use some repairs. And one of those beg buttons where you push the button and cross over by Gary Circle, because people could walk from that side of the, that side of town to get to Gibbons and Armstrong as well. So then we have some photos.
For lack of a beg button.
Indicating all of this, lots of photos. And then there were some recommendations. And now some of the recommendations are sort of simple fixes, things we can add to our website. I think I mentioned paint, things like that. And then some were more obviously engineering and structural that would take some conversation and more time. But lots of stuff with the website, put arrival and dismissal in a more visible spot on the website. So if someone was picking up that wasn't familiar with the procedures or hadn't been to Gibbon or Armstrong a million times, they could look it up prior to coming and know the procedure and figure out the flow that goes on there. And then maybe considering add a circulation map. I know Mill Pond has done that, a map describing the flow. And then we can also do more promotion of just active transportation to and from school to help reduce the congestion over there, and these things that we suggested increase the visibility of pedestrians and cyclists. Park and walk is a suggestion, which is kind of what happened today with the I Walk to School. I think Armstrong used the Congregational Church. People parked over there and then walked down to school. There's also like St. Stephen Church parking lot in that area, so there's options for a park and walk. And then something that Rachel kept saying that I'm not sure if we do is consider prioritizing walkers and bikers and dismiss those students first. So make them a priority, like you get out of school, I don't know, a minute early or right on time if you're actively walking or biking to school. And then, let's see. crossing guards, which I know we haven't had in quite some time, or even community volunteers to help, get across the streets. And then the Safe Routes to School has, all those resources on their website that we've talked about that people can look up and, utilize as well. Some more recommendations, kind of the same. Yeah, kind of the same. These are more of things that we can do that don't actually necessarily cost much money or time, kind of more of quick fix, bike racks and updating our website. And then some of the engineering recommendations. Widening lanes, long-term, consider even, we talked a lot about that facility shed that's right in the middle of the parking lot. If, there's any way we could figure out to move that out of the way, maybe that would free up some space there. Eda Compliant Ramps, to increase walkability, repainting the crosswalks. It was the ladder style to help increase visibility and safety in different spots. Temporary curb bump outs, maybe like on West Street, could help reduce speed. Anything they call it like traffic calming measures to get people to drive slower through there and pay more attention to what they're doing. And the flashing beacons. And then upgrading the sidewalks to match the quality on West Street and the ones that they just did, actually. And then these are some of the potential park and walk locations mapped out. And then Safe Routes to School, all of their resources, if you go to their website, they do education, evaluation, engagement, equity, engineering, and then some more resources at the end there. So like I said, we have the report now, and the Active Transportation Committee has the report, and then the next step is Safe Routes to School is opening one of their largest grants on October 15th. So Julie was going to go to the webinar, and so was I, a virtual webinar to learn more about the grant, and Rachel O'Donnell felt it was one of the grants that could be $200,000 up to like a couple $1 million. So we would take this report. It's a co-applicant grant, so it's a municipal with a school as a co-applicant. So with the help of the Active Transportation Committee, we would talk to the DPW and just see what we could pull together and hopefully apply, get something in. So just wanted to share with you, get any feedback.
That's good to hear. That was one of my questions, because it seems like some of this is work that falls under the DPW in terms of like painting sidewalks and crosswalks and fixing up the sidewalks and things, signage.
And when Bob was there, we thought that the DPW does have access to where maybe we have some, I don't know if they're in stock, but, budget for the flashing beacons and some of that signage and obviously the paint on the painting. Julie did pull a map for us of the area, and we just kind of need to go through now and figure out what's actually under school jurisdiction versus what's under DPW jurisdiction. So lots of pieces to work out, but
Great.
potential.
And I'm assuming that the town is a willing partner and partnering with us on all this.
Yes, like I said,
awesome.
yeah.
Good.
So.
Just want to remind you that during the Gibbons reconstruction, that in fact the buses did travel on the right side of the building and around the back, because we needed to do the rehab of the front of the building. So buses can travel on that route, and in fact did for almost a year.
That's very interesting, because we talked a lot about that as well. Good to know.
Not sure they did.
I heard it was, because the road couldn't be widened because there's wetlands over there too. That's
Yeah, I
accurate,
think that,
Steve?
I wasn't sure that they ran the buses back there. I think they ran the track of cars that needed to enter back in there. We parked
Well,
back there for the.
It's passable because it's a fire lane. It's
We
passable
did
with
pass
trucks.
the, right, we
Yes.
parked trucks back there from the project too, yes.
I bet it was project trucks, because they think about queuing cars up there, and, we were like, oh, I wonder if all the cars went around and picked up from the back, wouldn't that be so great to get them all out of the front? But then if there's an emergency, that's a fire lane, so you can't have all these cars there waiting for their kids. So anyway, it's just.
Well, they can't park there, but they could drive through there.
Yeah. But
Oh,
then,
it's a great list of that's why.
And then I don't think a bus could make that turn. We walked over there too. It looked like a tight turn for a bus. But anyway. So.
Well, this was a lot of work, so thank you so much for your involvement in this, and Sarah, thank you for bringing us this report. It's super helpful just to get an outside set of eyes on what we're doing and areas for improvement. I love the park and walk ideas or park and roll ideas, where having designated areas, and I noticed a lot of groups were doing that today. Like there was a group of people parking at Bay State Commons and walking down to Hastings, and if that's feasible for some folks, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
For sure. Yep. And we do plan on doing the walk assessments, hopefully eventually for Mill Pond, Fails when it gets its new system up and running, and Hastings as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the program goes from K to 8. So.
And it makes sense to start with Armstrong and Gibbons, because that's a campus
It was
that
like a
has
2-for-1.
multiple
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah, and multiple issues, yes.
Yep. For 2 schools. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So if you think of anything, I'll keep you posted, when we're meeting with the town and pulling information together for the.
And in the extended committee, the Safe Routes Committee that meets, there's a DPW rep on there, isn't there? Is Chris on there? Who is it? Okay.
On the active.
So they're
Transportation
actively
Committee.
reviewing the data as well. All right, so that
Yeah,
we
they,
can.
I think it was September 28th, they brought this report to that meeting as well, and then we're going to bring it here and then get together after that. And
Yeah, all right, that makes sense. And then we'll look at, again, the interface between assessing recommendations internally, things that make sense for school implementation, ones that could possibly go to the grant, and then ones that would go to DPW or to us. So we'll have to walk it through. It looks good though, thank you.
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you both for coming and for your work on this. Appreciate it.
Well, it opens the door for grants. I mean, without this amount of work from the group, the committee, and the assessment, you really can't apply. So it predisposes us to then being able to get in the queue. So I think it's a huge piece of getting some movement on some of it. So thanks.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is preparation for town meeting, which is Monday, October 18th at 7 p.m. at Westborough High School. This is an annual fall town meeting. Well, it's typically called the special town meeting, but it has become annual, so special annual fall town meeting. And the schools, we do have 2 articles up on the warrant.
Yes, so I'm just opening them up. So I think at this point, it's an update, just to be clear that at this point, the warrant is closed, as we said, and our article is in the queue. We have been able to do our presentations to our major groups. I'm not sure when they're going to, we met with FinCom and Select Board. I'm not sure when they will actually vote on their overall recommendation, approval, and, blessing in terms of the perspective of those warrant articles. I think they're close on completing reviews, and they have 2 more meetings, but the pace is picking up here. So I would say that the next important follow-up is probably to have me or you as the chair just kind of reach out and inquire if they need any additional information from us. I sent them the presentations. I think you saw that. I think the discussion was favorable and certainly, involved at both committees. But it is important that we are, clear that we're seeking approval from both committees coming into town meeting. So I do think that it's important that we have a follow-up, so I just kind of wanted to put it back out there. And one, yes, Amber, go follow up, or, Kristen, if you want to do outreach, but I do think we want to close the loop with them probably this week and indicate, is there anything else they need, and be explicit that we know the value of their approval, and acceptance heading into town meeting.
Yeah, I can follow up on the emails that you sent with the presentations and just see if there are any outstanding questions or additional questions before they all have their meetings again.
And then from there, I basically think that we would take the general presentation that I sent to you. I think what would be actionable in terms of support for preparation would be for you to look back through that presentation and just see if you have suggestions for what you want to add back into that. Do you want me to change it up? How do you want to modify that? I can, work with Kristen on it up close, and Dave and I will look at it, but we just want to make sure that, one, that presentation is then basically ready to go, and if we receive questions, we step forward to go ahead. Good night, you guys. Again, thank you so much. That we would have, the presentation ready to go, and then if questions come up, we would present the article back up.
Yeah, and I know when we went to the select board, both you and Daniel were there to present on one of the articles. Have you determined yet, who will present? Will it be you and Dave presenting at the, if there are questions from town?
I mean, typically, yeah, one of us will get up and do the overview. I think we haven't even discussed who will be there yet. Typically I anticipate that both Dave and Daniel will be there, and we will, answer questions as they arise. I'm comfortable for one of you to do the overview. I'm happy to do the overview, and we answer questions as a group. I know it's flexible, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Jarrett's always on hand to answer building-based questions.
Yeah, I think, I don't, again, I'm not sure. I think you have the ELL position request and the payroll position request. So, we can present the article as it was presented at the meetings, and then Dave and I could divide back up on discussion. If they ask a point on the L position, I'll speak. If they ask a point of clarification on the financial payroll, then David could speak. So I think it'd be nice to come in with that. We haven't mapped that out yet, but it feels like logical that we would do that, and be ready to answer questions.
Yeah, I think those slides are, they seem to work well at AFC and with the select board. So
I'll look back in my notes to see if additional questions, I know, again, each of you provide good insights about, hey, do this, change that, this worked, add this. So if you flip through that presentation again, just send me any feedback. We have a little bit of time, but then I can tweak it and we should be ready to go.
yeah, and both those are posted on Westborough TV at those two different meetings. So if people wanted to see the presentations.
And it seems logical that board to board, that you would send an email on behalf of your board to inquire if they are going to be supporting the article.
Sure.
I think that would be helpful. And then sometimes each of you have different relationships with people to check in with other board members to see if they have any questions. I think it's important. We don't typically bring articles to fall town meeting. I think we want to make sure that we're, crossing our T's and dotting our I's.
Yep. And I would also just like to encourage the community to come out and support not just the articles that the school has on the warrant, but all of the community articles that are on there. You can look at the Town of Westborough website to see all of the articles ahead of time. As always, it'll be aired on Westborough TV, but your physical presence and participation in the meeting is really important to voice your support or voice your questions to articles that are brought forward, and to have a say in our town government. So.
And I think, knock on wood, maybe one night it feels like we should finish. It's a very tight warrant. It's not, I think, in depth in terms of time. So I think we should be able to do it in the evening.
And just that Monday evening, yeah. So that's Monday, October 18th, 7 PM at the high school. So put that on your
And
calendar.
I'll attach, again, that update when we push out the update to families.
Sure. Questions?
We should look back to see what questions were asked that day of that warrant article. I don't have them written down, I
I
just
think
looked.
Krista took notes, and so we can review it, but I think if you look at it, you'll look at it with fresh eyes and see if you have any questions.
Anything else about town meeting?
Had we presented this article in a school committee meeting or only in the tri-board meeting?
No, we've shared it here.
We've shared it, right?
Yeah, you
Couple
did, you
meetings
saw the
We
draft.
talked about it, yeah.
You approved the draft. I never go anywhere without your approval. What do you mean?
So many meetings, so little time.
I am always here first. We came forward with the proposal, and then after you approved the draft, you saw the draft, and then we took it on the road.
You asked very pertinent questions.
Here you go.
You did.
Well, I think also we had originally had the two positions as separate articles, and then they were combined into one.
Right.
So
That's right.
Right, it's it's an adjustment to the salary request, and so logically, in placing them together, it makes sense.
Yeah.
All the meetings are just flowing into one now for me.
Get ready for budget season, it's one big roll from now. Okay, so
All right,
that's it
thank
for
you.
tonight.
Okay, thank you. That's a
that.
helpful preparation for fall town meeting.
Sure.
Next on the agenda is a draft of the superintendent's goals. This is a annual.
All right, annual
Happening.
process. So typically, I'll present them tonight and walk you through them, and then you have time to give me individual feedback, to give it here, and then we can incorporate thoughts into refining them. Typically, you can take a look at them and give Kristen feedback, and she and I can talk about it. You can call me directly. It's really whatever works, for you. I'm going to just step you through, and I consider them draft in the sense that I'm always kind of thinking about them anyway. There's plenty of things that fall under scope of work for the year that don't go on my goals, but this is an area for us to call out some, targeted areas of focus where I feel like you get more data from me on these items and, a continuity of focus, and so you see the continuation with some adjustments to, again, leading the district through the final stages, as I call, I've named it final stages of COVID-19, and my ever hopeful perspective around how we would continue to move forward. To sustain effective communications that we developed over the last year through a lot of practice and effort from all of our stakeholders, to respond effectively to changes in the pandemic as it continues to evolve. We know it will be a year-long process of continual shifts and adjustments to our protocols based upon the status of things, to modify those practices as needed to support faculty and staff, and to really look at budget impacts with a focus on grant funds, some very, very large dollars flowing between the ARPA recovery funds coming to the town and the schools. You have the ESSER funds flowing into the district. Managing and leveraging those strategically over the next 3 years, is an important process to managing both recovery but also strategic capacity to maximize opportunities. And as the year goes along, you'll get updates from Dave and I on that work, of course, and it'll interface with budgeting. And then a strong implementation of the SEL goals, which have complemented, as you hear us talking about continually, the way we're working to recover from COVID, to actively assess the impacts on our faculty and students and our community, and to provide layers of support. Around Standard 1 for instructional leadership, I picked some highlight areas. Clearly, the largest strategic goal this year is the development of the new strategic plan. The focus on completing that, making it robust and visionary to the work ahead of us, attainable, meaningful, and then move forward with you thoughtfully. So we're taking steps in that right direction, but we're also pacing ourselves, because just as we shifted our pacing guides for students, we're adjusting some of our pacing guides for faculty, and we need time to return this plan in front of them and to continue working on it with them and bring it forward for a strong final approval to guide the work over the next 5 years. So we'll finalize the plan. We'll use WLT to keep working on that draft. We'll then present it and circulate it for feedback. We'll modify that draft based upon final feedback. That final feedback will come through survey and discussions. We'll bring it in front of you again. You'll have chances to give feedback. We'll put it in front of faculty again in small groups. We'll rotate it to the community of students and parents with a Google survey for them to have the chance to comment and find areas where they want us to do more, change perspectives. We'll then circulate and approve it. We want a long enough window for that circulation. I think that's important so that people don't feel like we approve it and you don't want to hear people say, well, we never saw that. So it's important that that circulation phase between completion of the draft, which will happen in the next week or so, and then really through the end of October and November, circulation opportunities. So that's really where we are right now. We would lay out, that first tier implementation then for 21-22. Like we are actively beginning. You'll see, in that final plan that the year one is this year, and we're actively moving forward on a lot of those goals, and many of them stage forward for multiple years. I anticipate it being in front of you for final approval, probably that December 1st or 15th. I'm anticipating typically how we do these things is you would see it in its final recommendation from me on the 1st. You'd get a last pass to look at it again with final approval on the 15th heading into the new year. We then provide a mid-year and end-of-year report. The mid-year will look different based upon kind of when we finish it and what it looks like. It'll be a more, loosely scaffolded update on getting started with it. And then the end of year report for year one will be more robust and full to the design of how I tend to do it annually. So that really is the massive kind of most essential goal of the instructional standard this year. I'd pull out a couple other highlights just to make sure that they remain visible. They are folded into the strategic plan, but I'm just re-echoing them. We'll continue to refine and continue the DEI practices. That will look at best implementation of inclusive practices, collaborating with Daniel and Sherry, really focusing on the development of managing targets for equity-based inclusive practices across the district. This year, I'm picking up a really new targeted focus of that work. What you heard some discussion around it with the John Crocker work and looking at tiered interventions. This year, the goal is to really anchor that final stage of implementation with really shifting with supervision, support, and expectations that our clinical teams of the school counselors, school psychologists, and guidance counselors really do robustly implement the strategies, training, and work that they've received over the last 2 years. Daniel and Sherry and I and the leadership team remain very committed to that, and I think this year we really will be pulling that as a core focus. And lastly, continue to leverage the DEI district team to guide and provide feedback to the district across the range of DEI work. And again, I pick up a little bit more around race and equity down below, but I also around the curriculum work, and because it's DEI, picked up the I piece here around like really holding that up as a curriculum goal, those inclusive practice goals, which we've been working on for a while. Moving down to management and operations, again, supporting the construction and completion of FAILs. You can see, again, our chief shepherd of work on this is Steve Durrett, and Marianne Stannard are your two amazing anchor workers on this, and I'm probably the third leg of that stool in terms of working to get things moved forward towards completion. I'll continue to participate across the range of that work, and certainly the collaboration on transition and working with staff. Marianne and I are, that's where the bulk of my work is going, is kind of road mapping that work with her and partnering on what she needs to map out what's logical for her faculty and our staff. Around other areas of management and operations, you see training cabinet offices on Munis updates, leveraging our trainers, and continue to work with David on maximizing that up at Forbes. And then a focus that I think is just important to note, which is really we've seen several transitions up at Forbes, and it can feel somewhat invisible, but really onboarding new central office cabinet team members is important to, like picking up my spelling here, team members at Forbes to guide and support key projects of their departments. So continuing to work collaboratively with David in his work of director in finance, looking at that year 2 capital planning process being a really essential implementation for us, both as a school committee, but really up close at a very deep level for David and I to continue to work on. Reorganization of the business office workflow and responsibilities to improve productivity, customer service, and efficiency being work that will continue. Leveraging Munis, planning new budget book layout, really those are core focuses for David and I, as well as, you know, producing the budget and everything else that falls under the umbrella of all of that work. We continue to develop our partnership, but when you add new team members, we need to learn and develop the working framework of just letting him have time to learn the depth of the work, which he's done very quickly, but then just really going through one full cycle of a year is important when we onboard new team members. Additionally, you had an unexpected transition and now we've hired a director of human resources. That'll be a second major cabinet position coming into central office, and just the time and energy that needs to be done well to make sure that they're getting what they need to be successful is an area of focus, not just for me, but for the cabinet team. But certainly those are 2 of my direct reports, and so I just think it's important to acknowledge with you that, you know, a lot of my time and energy in terms of at least thinking time and work time is directed in that way. And then if you look at, so those are the big ones, you know, I mean, managing a district is always busy, but those are the ones I wanted to hold out to you for goals. And then I think looking at standard 3, family and community engagement, really continuing to work with the town, shifting away from sitting on the CAP and the master planning committees to now actively implementing those plans. You see them flowing from the master plan into school components where now there's grants, there's meetings, there's implementation discussions. You know, Ragu plays an active role on that committee work. There's a lot of energy around, you know, the safe routes to school and all these pieces that require grant writing and implementation and all the coordination with those groups. They all want us on committees, at meetings, generating work, writing grants. Like that is not work that we want to step away from, but it's work that takes a giant chunk of time. So trying to be strategic about that remains very important. I'm very pleased that these committees are done in terms of the active development phase, but the implementation phase isn't less. It's just different. So that will be a big part of my time over the span of this next year. Looking to sustain and continue to collaborate with a key organization in our town, Westborough Connects. I think it remains very important to recognize that this organization, I think, has really deep, meaningful impact in the community of Westborough. They are an important arm of professional development for families and community members and faculty and students and all of the things that they provide in this community, as well as connection, community, and things that echo the core values that we share around kindness and strength-based learning. They're an amazingly new organization as well that have suffered as well through almost 2 years now of the COVID impact of surviving being an organization where basically they're all about bringing people together. So here they are having survived, but we need to make sure that they thrive, because I think that they remain really essential. We have so many deep, well-established organizations like WEF, like Boosters, you know, those are closer to us, again, but also independent organizations. And this is a community organization that we really want to stay close with. So I do sit on their board. I work on some of their subcommittees. I just think it's important that we continue to support them, and to call out what that takes is giving them time and attention. I meet monthly with the director and, you know, try to actively participate in what it takes for that organization to thrive. I'm looking forward to shifting some of my attention back to being in a support role for that now that the CAP committee and the master plan have kind of tapered out. I took a sidestep on some of that work over the last 2 years just because of capacity while we were also undergoing COVID. So I'm looking forward to being like an important part of work for me in the upcoming year. We will be anchor participants and sponsors for the MLK event and for Kindness Week, as well as Unplugs. Like, we participate across a range of events, as well as Square One. Like, they are carrying a professional development arm into the community that typically years ago we did independently. Now we get to collaborate with them. So it continues to be important that we understand the shared relationship that this group is. I want to also work to maintain and assess the new working model of the Superintendent's Advisory Committee, which we shifted some of the ways we work, and this year we're doing Zoom and together, and we've also kind of shifted the ways we work, and I think it feels productive to me, and Kristen sits in on that, and I want to continue just leveraging the kind of, I think, the really powerful communication circle that group provides. Also really need to work on sustaining the communication models around COVID-19 updates, where we're posting our illness rates and numbers, and we're putting out the FAQs as needed. All of that just takes time and energy and needs to be maintained. And then I think another important thing to note is that the return to events shifts my calendar. So I think it's important to note to you, as those that supervise me, that plays, theater, concerts, sports, everything's up and running again, and circulating through those events, participating in them, and being present is an active part of the role of the superintendent, at least how we live it here in Westborough. So, that is cycling back into my calendar, but it changes my time as well, and it'll be important for me to give you a picture of how that impacts and supports the work that I do. Lastly, we look at professional culture, standard 4, focusing to further look at the district culture that embraces and exemplifies equity and anti-racist practices through our DEI work. Again, the echoing of the DEI in the 2 areas of key impact, connecting with varied diversity and equity committees throughout Westborough, establishing a DEI team to provide a broader layer of feedback and voice from across the district of diverse and interesting faculty members who want to participate in the work we do, supporting the PD work with a leadership team, district colleagues and community with Liza and other work that we'll do, and then focusing on goals for authentic and connected relationships on the ground. Sustaining the strong collaboration meeting schedule with my WLT members always takes an important, meaningful part of our work. Both Daniel and I spend a high volume of time in schools. We believe that gives us the insights we need and the relationships we need to do this work effectively for you on behalf of the district. But I would say it's rare, the amount of time that we cycle out of Forbes and away from our desks and into buildings. That remains a core value for us, but I think it's very important that it can be a small blip on my list, but it's a lot of time and energy. So we commit to 2 hours with every leader we supervise every 2 weeks. So, I directly supervise 11 and then another 5 that I circle through that. So, just by sheer hours per week, we really spend a lot of time in the field, as does Daniel. So I think this is important as you look at that to kind of get a sense of the range of the work. And then lastly, continuing to connect with community events and groups. Your civic club wasn't really meeting as much, your Rotary Club, a lot of those organizations, the Senior Center, those are all places that I circulate and meet to bring messages around budgeting and warrant articles. I need to gear back up into those relationships, but again, it's hours across the day that we have to kind of figure out how to fold back into life in school. So that is kind of an overview of what I've kind of laid out in my head for what has to happen effectively for me this year to guide the district back to an ongoing place of both innovation and health in terms of our work. So that's it. I think I welcome your feedback and advice and guidance. Offering advice on how to get things done well is always welcome, as well as feedback as I progress through it, and areas where you think, and Andrew, that's open to you as well. Feel free to like dig in there and tell me what you want me to get done. It really is an opportunity for you guys to look at the work and give me feedback. So I would let you look at those over time and then seek your approval at the next meeting.
Sure, sounds good. And anyone is welcome to share their feedback with me or with Amber directly. She's always open to that as well. So, and we'll take a look at them again at our next meeting. So thank you for that, your thought that went into that.
So, as I said, we'll shift to the next piece, and our pacing is good tonight, and I'm
Okay.
sorry you have to listen to me on the last three here. So one of the other things that we've actively been working towards completing, this is the working draft of the strategic plan. It pulled from, my goal tonight on the kind of public record phase of bringing this back to you is that I just want to walk people through the layout of the design, and then it will move towards completed final draft. I'd say it's at about 70% now. It'll be at about 90 when we push it out to people, thinking we'll get feedback to adjust things.
I just want to alert our viewers that you're jumping ahead to items on the agenda to go to the strategic plan.
Oh, did
which
I?
I'm fine with.
What did I do? Oh, I hopped your goals. I'm sorry. How did I do that?
We have two
No.
other things we have to do.
I
but-
would know that I'm happy to wait.
Are you sure?
Yeah, no, I was
All
just
right.
on a roll.
Give you a break
No,
from
I'm
talking.
kidding. I would love to shorten this section and have you do your resolutions. So, Madam Chair, my apologies. Let's turn it back
That's
to you.
okay. I just
No wonder
thought you
she
wanted
thought
to-
we were.
I was like so excited we were far ahead. I'm like, look at us go.
Like, we're out of here.
Wow. All right, go ahead.
I was thinking, why is she not saying anything?
I'm waiting for the timing. All right, so next on our agenda is to vote on the MASC resolution. So we took a look at these resolutions. There are 9 of them. The following resolutions were moved forward by the MASC Resolutions Committee and approved by the Board of Directors. And it is our role as member school committees to vote our approval or disapproval of these resolutions being brought forward, just to kind of give a sense of how different school community members are feeling about these resolutions. And then MASC takes all of the individual votes and kind of then passes the resolutions or brings them forward to enact different policy and action at the state level.
I'd like to make a motion to accept all 9 as printed, simply because this is the first time in a long time that they all make sense and they're all consistent with at least my own opinion as to what the MASC should be doing.
All right. Is there a second for that motion?
I'd second that.
All right, any discussion?
I mean, I think we
that.
should mention what each one is, just so they know what we're.
Sure. So
Well,
I can,
I would suggest that you just read the title
Yeah,
and
yeah,
read the.
therefore be it resolved.
Yeah, therefore
sure.
be it resolved.
Yep.
Okay.
So Resolution 1, and we have these on the screen too, and they are also available on the MASC website. Resolution 1, dedicated funding for school-based clinics and services. This is sponsored by the Framingham School Committee. Therefore be it resolved that MASC support proposals that would establish dedicated funding for school-based physical health and mental health clinics and services. Resolution 2, homework gap and Wi-Fi internet access. Be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees file for and support legislation which seeks to provide free broadband internet to all K-12 students in Massachusetts. And be it further resolved that MASC support federal initiatives and legislation to improve national high-speed broadband internet infrastructure, expansion of the FCC's E-rate program to include homes of K-12 students, or any other steps to expand free access to reliable high-speed broadband to the students of our nation. Resolution 3, IDEA Full Funding Act. This is on here every year, isn't it? Therefore, be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees calls upon the Massachusetts Congressional Delegation to reintroduce and promote the passage of the IDEA Full Funding Act.
It doesn't actually say what that is,
go
but
ahead.
it's the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. That's what the IDEA is.
Thank you. Thank you. Resolution 4, recess. Therefore, be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees support legislation, current bills in the Senate 383 and in the House 695, calling for at least 20 minutes of uninterrupted, supervised, safe, and unstructured free play recess per day, which cannot be excluded from structured learning time requirements and may not increase the total number of hours required in the school year for Massachusetts elementary school students. Resolution 5, zero tolerance policies. Therefore, be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees call upon the legislature to enact or amend legislation, current bills in the Senate 344 and in the House 664, to encourage the use of restorative, therapeutic, and educational approaches to incidents whenever possible over the use of zero tolerance policies in order to provide students the best chance to remain in the public school systems of the Commonwealth. Resolution 6, alternative to MCAS. Therefore, be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees call upon the legislature to establish a commission to research and analyze alternative means for students to demonstrate academic achievement, which can be used to satisfy graduation requirements for individual students and accountability standards for Massachusetts public schools and school districts. And there are 2 current bills about that in the Senate and the House. Resolution 7, school committees and receivership. Therefore, be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees file for and support legislation which seeks to preserve the authority of the elected body, the school committee, as provided in Mass General Law, Chapter 69, Section 1K, by deleting the words "and school committee" as noted, and by inserting the following. Nothing in this section shall permit the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education or the Commissioner to remove the authority of the school committee. And be further resolved that MASC support local initiatives and legislation to restore school committee oversight of the superintendent and/or receiver, including but not limited to goal setting, performance review, and the evaluation process. Resolution 8, electric school buses. Therefore, be it resolved that MASC petition Congress to appropriate $30 billion for improving the electrical supply infrastructure and providing electric buses and charging stations. And Resolution 9, prohibiting the use of Native American mascots. Therefore, be it resolved that the Massachusetts Association of School Committees support legislation calling for regulations prohibiting public schools from using an athletic team name, logo, or mascot which names, refers to, represents, or is associated with Native Americans, including aspects of Native American cultures and specific Native American tribes. Those are the 9 resolutions, and we have had a motion to accept all 9 and a second. Is there any other discussion about the motion? All right, are we ready to vote? All in favor? Great, that is 5-0. These 9 resolutions are all accepted by our school committee, and Steve is our representative to the MASC delegation, and so he will bring forward our votes on these. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. All right, and now we need to vote to approve school committee goals for this school year. So at our retreat, one of the things that we do every year is look at the goals that we set for ourselves the previous school year and create new goals for the school committee. And so what you see before you is a draft of the school committee goals that we worked on at the retreat, and we've done some wordsmithing since then. And thank you to those of you that provided some feedback. So the school committee goals that we have drafted for this school year are to maintain and evaluate COVID-19 safety protocols to guide the district, continue to monitor and recover from COVID-19 budget impacts. Number 2, continue to monitor and assess the district's educational equity and non-discrimination policies, and we've listed those policies there. Number 3, support the range of social, emotional, and mental health programs and ongoing work for all students in the district in general and those that specifically address the impacts of COVID-19. Number 4, finalize and approve the school district's new 5-year strategic plan. Number 5, actively participate in the capital planning committee process and maintain effective strategic relationships with town boards, the community, and local and state government officials. Number 6, complete the FY23 annual budget process in a fiscally responsible manner that represents the values of our town while meeting our community's educational mission and goals. And number 7, finally, hope to check this one off the list, open the new Fales Elementary School and complete the construction work on site. So I look forward to, maybe that goal won't be there next year.
Just a question. No, number 6, did you want it to say that represents or respects? Because both of them work.
Oh, what did I say?
You said represents, but that works as well. The values of our town.
That respects and represents.
Represents. You could do that.
You can add that.
They both work. And
So these are the school committee goals that we have drafted. Is
So
there?
move.
There
So
is
move the goals as listed.
Thank you, Steve. There is a motion to accept these as our goals for the school year. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sarah. Any further discussion on the goals? All right, all in favor? 5 in favor, none opposed, so those will be our goals for the school year. I will share those with Andrea, and she will get them posted onto the website and update the goals from last year to these ones for this year. Thank you. All right, now I can turn it back to Amber.
I know, I was all ready to like have you out of
I'm
here.
going to jump ahead, but now we're ready to see, and this is something that we looked at our retreat, and I'm really excited to see the shape of the new strategic plan.
So I have not added to it since we looked at it, so it's going to be a weekend project to go back into my notes. So I'm going to give a similar public overview to the range of work I was able to share with you and let people see the framework of how this will be set up. And we'll continue working on it. I've got a couple people that have asked to come in and put additional content in it. Sherry Stevens has additional work. So people have things they want to put in. I told them that they would have through the next week to be able to continue to fold those things in. So one of the things I want to frame is that, like our past strategic plan, we have 5 core areas of focus: teaching and learning, wellness and relationships, communications, community and connection, management and operations, and facilities. Every time we spent a lot of time kind of thinking through over the last 2 years pre-COVID and then into this past summer, going back into our notes and really looking at like where are the areas where we really have things that we're passionate about moving forward, as well as projects that have to get done. And so they cluster into these major strategic areas of focus. One of the things that I like about each of these, and then under that, then priorities that we want to focus on. And what we're doing right now is these are areas that we've articulated that we know we have work we're excited about diving into, and that then there's a bunch of tiered goals that kind of fall underneath all of those major priorities. So those are the areas where we're starting to flesh out the document. And right now, the W is holding a nice draft. If you scan down, just scroll down, Daniel, kind of we'll have each of these areas. We'll go back and add photos and things. But the framework is such that you can see at this stage, you have the goals dropped in. So you see the priority, which is explore and develop ideas for new program initiatives. And you see at this stage, we have the goals are fleshed in, develop educational targets, explore dual language immersion. These are projects that, if you look at them, are strategic and long-term, saying develop a committee to assess interests and options and benefits and impacts. So a strategic plan is different in the sense that it poses vision, opportunity, and ideas that can be really big. Whether or not we would ever move to a dual language or a K-6 language immersion, I don't know that would be something we would or wouldn't adopt. But when you're strategic planning, you're visioning. You're thinking about tiers of work that have yet to come to the district, areas where you see other districts that have done work while we've done other things. And so these are things that we've pulled out for areas of focus to ask good questions and to be strategic about why we would or wouldn't do them. So that's an example of kind of some of the types of things you see in strategic planning that are exciting. And if you scroll down a little bit more, you look at assess the interest and need for responsive programming for curricular topics that are brought forward by people. So, you know, we hear feedback all the time, and so one of the things we wanted to capture in this strategic plan was areas of grabbing interest where people have articulated things that we want to make sure we don't lose in terms of decision-making, discussion, and surfacing them. It's kind of the voice of people across the community. Two examples of that are people that want us to continue to innovate our civics work and look at post-graduation financial literacy. So those are kind of like interesting things that have circulated over a couple of years, and I held the notes and I was like, these are things that, you know, yes, we've done some updating, but those are examples, and there will be more that will fold in under this goal. And then each of those, as they lift out for work, get, you know, research and projects and different things that bring them to fruition or decision making. If you stream down a little bit more there, Daniel, looking at increasing engineering and STEAM programming, moving more robotics robustly into Gibbons, looking at developing a relationship with Amazon, extending development of makerspace innovations. Those are all things that we want to flesh out a little bit more in terms of adding the timeline and who will pick up the core focus on that. You know, these are projects that we know will move forward, say, as you develop the makerspace at Fails. I've already asked, that's actually a tier 1 goal for this year to look at in 21-22. And so I'll bring it back, and leadership will probably make a decision where they put the X's there in the years, and that's the kind of work that needs to be finished to bring it from kind of 75 to that 95% done before we share it out to faculty. If you scroll down, another major priority under teaching and learning is sustaining and extending technology innovations. And again, then you see a series of goals: implementing innovative technologies, keeping ourselves current. You see the new smart boards that are going in over, for example, at Fails, will precipitate a cascading transition of keeping the technologies equitable across district, and coming up with a plan for doing that over several years. So I'm just providing for you a sampling of what strategic planning looks like. A document like this is taken in small bites. You know, for the district and for the leadership team, we take it in a whole document. It is a document that I hold for road mapping with you and then working with the teams to do strategic planning year to year, and then to report to you on how the budget flows, the decision making, and the direction of all of our work kind of happening in a way that's cohesive. So if you scroll down a little further, one of the things I also like about this new document, again, is it echoes the design of the old layout, but it's been innovative. It'll have a lot more linking and hyperlinking to different reports and different things that can, there, do that one, that's good. As an example, the old document didn't do this, but now we'll call out the layout for this, the fine arts strategic plan, and then they have a deeper level of work that's done by their department, and so they link their document. So this is the fine arts strategic plan that's coming to fruition. Roger has a new one as well, and so it's kind of a cooler document now in the sense I think it's much more robust than the first one we did, and it gives it becomes then a holding place for us to interact with more people about it, which is kind of nice as well. So, you know, if I go to Rotary or something, I can pull from the document and use other links and things, and it becomes kind of a deeper archive for us, you know, of the work that we're doing across district. So, so those are all pieces of, you know, work in the future for us. If you hop back to the table of contents, Daniel. My goal tonight is then also you get the chance, and I don't know if he's finalized those hyperlinks. Let's see if they're working. Well, maybe. There we go. One of the other things we like about the document as we kind of updated it from before was just how to innovate what was kind of frustrating about the old one. So just to call it a couple process highlights, you see there, if you look down, I'm just going to work off of this page right now for the remainder of this update, okay? To keep it manageable for everyone. If you look at the facilities work, you see the green sustainability that I was saying, like after they design all those big projects and they talk in the master planning and the CAP project, it has to flow into people's strategic planning. Some of it will come to us, some of it goes to DPW, some of it goes to the town and other departments. And so we will have green sustainability goals, facility maintenance, and technology infrastructure work, which will continue to be captured around facilities. You'll see if you scroll down a little bit more there, Daniel, I think is there a fourth priority? Okay, so under facilities, you'll see, for example, I do anticipate as a sampling, we'll call out the extension of the borough project, the lower, we want to do the renovation of the lower downstairs space, which is currently not finished. We also want to propose a project looking to expand a small expansion of the fitness center at the high school to be able to pick up a open floor yoga training space. Right now, I'm sure Andrew could speak to the fact that like PE happens in the hallway. There's people doing a lot of yoga and meditation and stretching and all sorts of programming in the halls because there isn't a third kind of smaller facility-based room for that level of instruction. So, that's a project you'll see called out and paced against others. And we also want to finalize the expansion of the ropes at the top of the facility with the thought that we would gain a capacity to partner with fire and police and other communities to do social emotional kind of team building, but also workout opportunities where our team would be trained to facilitate having people on the site and to provide learning for them. So kind of cool stuff that's all visioning in future work, but a sampling of the kinds of things that you only get done if you fold those into strategic planning and work forward on them over time. So from here, what I wanted to do tonight in kind of bringing it to you was to stage that you figure today is October 5th, so through the remainder of October and then into the first couple of weeks of November, I foresee that between now and the first week of November, around in there, that faculty leadership and internal groups need to flesh this out to the 98% done. That means circling it to faculty meeting, to departments, and to back to leadership in different groups. From there, we'll share it out to the community, to faculty, to students and faculty to give us more feedback on. So I think that would then happen through the close of November, and it would be pretty close to finalization that we would then bring it to you as a final working proposal by that December 1st meeting, and then a chance for you to kind of give it a deeper look, and then move towards final approval. Again, I think it's important to know that you've walked this walk either by watching it because you're kind of people who pay attention, which is why you ended up on school committee, or you were here when we finalized the other one. We adapt it every year. It's a responsive document. It's a living, breathing document. There's no fear that we can't add to it or change it. I just think it's important to articulate our deep values commitment that our view is if we put it on the document, it's going to get done. So for me, that's the benchmark that we're holding, that if you look to what happened with the last one, when we opened the doors to fails and we look at those were all called out in this project, as was the preschool and the Armstrong. And so if we put it in the document, we'll get it done. And I think it is important that people understand our commitment and what an important document that becomes for our work. So that's my update tonight. I appreciated our chance to look at it reflectively at retreat, and I'll make sure that I'm providing, multiple looks for you as we move forward.
I look forward to the rounds of feedback on it too, from faculty and families and the community. That'll be helpful.
Yeah, I'm hopeful to be able to carve out some work hours on it myself and kind of get in there and start to kind of wordsmith drafting documents that I know I want to fold in there based upon meetings. Over the next 2 days, one of the things I want to look at is that green grant that we have to submit by Friday, and tomorrow's Thursday. So working collaboratively with the town, we've got a deadline that has to take priority working on that tonight, tomorrow, and Friday. So, and then I can turn towards this and bring, you know, it forward a little further. So that's it for tonight.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a COVID update on DESE policies involving vaccination rates and mask requirements.
Thank you. So this is, I want to frame this update. It's a verbal update. I mean, we're not going to open a lot of documents. These have already been released, so I put them here for public record review. This was the one that extended the mask mandate to November 1st and provided the start of what would be what they call off-ramping for masking potentials. And so, you know, I think it's important at this point to provide an update because people in our community know that the state DESE provided a framework that, you know, the October 15th beginning to be able to apply for the variants if you meet the 80% percentage for vaccination. And so I think it's important to provide for you an update and some steps forward. So that document is there and well, you know, it's available. We've released it a couple times. I think the important messaging that I want to have echoed kind of some of our work around COVID recovery, where the language is, we plan to go slowly to go far safely. So, you know, I think that we've learned that being able to go slowly enough to include the proper discussions, groups, no surprises, adjustment time for everyone, planning appropriately will allow us to go far safely and maintain the quality of focus we have on instruction this year and the sense of safety, while we also move forward towards resolution of COVID-based protocols when it's appropriate. So right now what I want to do is propose to you a couple of next steps. I currently have had a chance to begin those informal discussions. We attended Labor Board where we said that this exact message and that I would be coming to you and proposing how to take next steps. From there, tomorrow we meet with our leadership team, then we start to meet with the superintendent's advisory. I'll go back to the Board of Health. So there's just lots of groups to circle through. Yesterday I sat with 22 superintendents at a round table and had in-depth conversation around how those districts are starting to take steps forward in their planning. So, and then we have our labor board as well. So all of those groups are just, again, beginning thoughtful conversation. For me, I think it's important to put a proposal in front of you that what I think the next important step is that because our vaccination rate in Westborough is above the 80% benchmark, well above the 80% benchmark for students of vaccination age and for our faculty, reported at our last meeting, I would be proposing to apply to DESE for the waiver to move to more optional masking. That would allow us to have received permission, and it just is kind of like the first check the box in the slow, thoughtful steps forward. If you approve me applying for that, I would say the next important step is that then I would attend the Board of Health meeting. I would ask for an opportunity to speak with them on our behalf, and I would be seeking recommendations from them to give us some guidance on what their metrics are for and advice to us that I can bring back to you for moving forward with optional masking. And I would be clear with them that the school committee is asking for data-based guidelines grounded in guidance from the Department of Public Health and DESE, with also a look at the CDC guidelines, but those should be measured with acknowledgement of our state and town vaccination and illness rates. So CDC speaks to the nation, which is a very different perspective and covers a wide array of different circumstances. We then have state circumstances, local circumstances, and guidelines from other important groups. I would be wanting to voice that recommendation to them, that we would be seeking their guidance on when they would be feeling that they would be able to give us metrics of approval to begin flexible optional masking. I would then bring that back to you, let you have discussions about it, and all those other groups I talked about, to just propose in ways that we would and when we would step forward. Again, the acknowledged approval and acceptance by the Board of Health to make those moves merits that it's most appropriate to ask them to put in the time and energy to tell us what they see as the benchmark guidelines. They can see the same data that we can. They know the best guidance that DPH is providing. And so I would think that for us to engage in a conversation, it's just going to be easier to work off of when they're going to say yes, as opposed to going back and forth and, you know, feeling like we get told no or yes. I'd rather just work forward collaboratively as we have over the last 2 years with this board. I want to give a shout out to, you know, the amount of time that I spent with the director over the last 2 years, now a new director, and Jennifer Sullivan has been very collaborative. And Dr. Ehrlich last year, when he was chairing, gave us really strong, well-grounded advice. We look forward to our ongoing work with this team this year to kind of continue to answer questions. So I guess we'll be seeking 2 actions from you. 1, approval to apply to the state. 2, direction to visit the Board of Health and to propose that they start discussing when they would be comfortable, what they would need to see. And then I want to be clear that I would then expect that based upon those recommendations they share and what they think, it needs to come back to you for discussion and for us to finalize what we would be asking for and working with them on.
I would like to make a motion that you apply, that we as a district apply to the state for the mask waiver based on our current vaccination data.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
Well, I just want to mention that it opens up the space that eventually, you know, we would have potential optional masking. So by voting on it, we're saying we expect that one day there could be optional masking based upon recommendations and metrics. So I just wanted to put it out there versus, you know, seems obvious, but.
No, I appreciate, you know, the willingness for us to articulate our area of interest. And again, I want to be clear, I have heard clearly, and there's a range of interest, and we will speak about this, elementary faculty very concerned that teaching in this setting is incredibly difficult for them. And they would be looking towards guidelines for optional masking when possible, even to stand at the front of the classroom, be able to read a book, or to do guided reading groups even at a better distance, but without masks so that they can teach effectively. Elementary-based teaching goals are incredibly important with young learners, and teachers are articulating concern around, again, this would be optional. If a teacher didn't want to do that, they would not need to. But there are teachers who feel that they cannot meet instructional goals with children masked and are already beginning to ask for flexibility, as well as the fact that young children's voices are very, very hard to hear. They know that those students will remain masked until the state gives us better guidance. But for vaccinated individuals to be able to provide proper instruction, those are the kinds of discussions we need to open up, and we need to be able to be engaged with the Board of Health so they understand the complexities and the needs we have in order to guide instruction. I've had some of that articulated conversation with them, but I want to be clear that, you know, we are hearing from staff. It's not just, you know, my perspective. It's this teaching in that framework impacts their capacity to do good work. So those are things that we're trying to grapple with, which make it an important ongoing discussion.
So my understanding, so correct me if I'm wrong, step 1, I'm very procedural. Step 1, you're going to ask DESI for a exemption. Step 2, you're going to go to Board of Health and ask for some metrics where we can, guidance and metrics from them. Step 3 would come back to the school committee, and we have to approve whether the mask mandate can be optional or not. So
Yes, so your steps are well articulated. I would return to you as well as all those other circled group,
Yeah.
the labor board, the superintendent's advisor, would be kind of circling back through those groups with discussion. And then I would come to you to say, here's the final layout of what we want to propose, exactly what we did last year. And then we would go back to Board of Health and, request their approval. So we're looking for a stronger direction from them where they can articulate what they think those benchmarks can and should be, so you can engage in conversation with them. And we can then, everything will come to you. Step 4 would then be to go back to the Board of Health and then, acknowledge that we've met around that collaboration of those metrics.
So step 3, when you come to us, it's prerogative on us to keep in mind all of the constituents, including the students, the teachers, the faculty, the staff, the parents, everybody, for us then to decide whether we approve
Exactly.
it.
So we still have our policy in place. So we would relook at our policy and adjust that. And then the waiver is for optional masking for vaccinated individuals. So that would still leave anyone unvaccinated
Correct.
with the mask.
Correct.
I mean, depends what we do with our policy, but that's, yes, I would make it assumption that, well, actually,
It don't be blanket option.
well, based on the waiver, it would actually just.
Right, and again, this is a good conversation, and again, we're going to go slowly to go far safely. And I think that you'll see a continued evolution as well, because that's why data needs to ground this discussion and guidelines from Department of Public Health. Because I anticipate, that we will see a cycle of vaccination for 5 to 11-year-olds become available. That will shift. Then the next layer of masking for unvaccinated students who are in school with us. So I think we're going to have a couple transitional phases for the year, and moving to some options. We'll have to work with the board. First, let's ask them and see where they are using the data guidelines, and then we will have this kind of public, clear, and articulated discussion together.
Ask is when you go to the board, it's not just when can we trigger the mask optional, but when can we claw back if things go bad.
Exactly.
Both
Right.
metrics should be available.
Yes, and that's the goal of asking for the Board of Health to engage in the conversations they need to have so that you can listen to them. They listen to conversations like this that you're having. We can then, listen to them, process and think about where they are and learn where we can come together around health and safety for everyone and the best instructional flexibility and moving back to the most typical experience that every faculty and student member wants to have in their school experience.
So we had a motion to apply for the state waiver, and there was a second. Is there any further discussion?
I guess I would just thank everyone who went out and got vaccinated, because that makes a huge difference in this process, and Andrew and all the students and faculty that have been wearing their masks every day to school. So thank you for your
agree.
vigilance.
I agree. I was at the high school today, and I was at Armstrong yesterday, and community-wise, our students we've said they look a little busy, but their mask compliance and their focus on that is amazing. So I agree.
Yeah. Any other discussion? All in favor? 0 in favor of applying for the waiver. And the second piece of that is I would like to direct you to visit the Board of Health. I don't think we need to take an official vote on that, but we do support you in visiting the Board of Health, and that we as a board are asking them for the data, for optional masking for those who are vaccinated, when and, how that might happen. And then again, to your point, what is the data that would allow us to then ask vaccinated individuals to have to remask if there's a problem with numbers and all that.
Right, so, and I would, thank you, I take that direction, and I'm happy to go with it. I just want to, I'm sure there are people listening to this conversation, I had a couple people that said that they would be, I want to again, I want to reiterate, we will go slow to go far, we will share information along the way, there will be a range of opinions. I want to thank our parent community and our faculty community that our ability to work on teaching and learning is because we have not been swamped with position emails from people around what perspectives we need to take. And I don't believe at this stage in our work in the pandemic that, we need to be lobbied with multiple emails. I don't mean that disrespectfully. The voice of people coming forward to share their opinions, we will provide context for people to do that. But it becomes difficult when we're trying to send back thoughtful, reflective emails to people. Please remember that in the last year, we shifted to the FAQ, where you could direct comments through the Superintendent's Advisory Committee to your building-based PGA presidents and different people, and they brought that stuff forward, and we were able to galvanize a much more inclusive and thoughtful response mechanism against individual emails. I appreciate that people think that that's helpful, and on some levels I certainly understand it, but you also want our faculty, our principals, myself, all of you focusing on teaching and learning this year. So, I think if they have thoughts there's nothing to ask about yet. There's no proposal to change anything. We're beginning to talk about it, and I think that we need to let the evolution of what guidance we get from the Board of Health be the next step. And so I thank everyone for that patience, and, there's not going to be any surprises. So people can just move forward. Right now, we're thrilled with how things are going.
Yeah, and I think too, I've had some families ask about events moving forward. They see that we're back to our more typical school year where we're having dances and homecoming events, and people are thinking about strings concerts and plays and stuff. And so I think that, what we did in the spring was really thoughtful in terms of event by event. What will be the protocols, who can attend, masks, no masks, all that stuff. And I think, this will give us a nice opportunity to take it event by event and kind of see where that takes us.
Right, there's definitely a range of time between receiving DESE's approval for optional masking to actually look at individual events and understand them with more flexibility and be able to work with the director of the Board of Health, which is how we worked all through last year when we were in a much higher state of risk, to ask questions about, I'm going to do this for this event following the guidelines, I'm going to do this, and it allowed us ways to move forward to provide the best instructional experience. So, right now, our anticipated goal is all of our events will move forward this year successfully. Homecoming will be amazing, we'll be outside, and we'll make sure that it's really fun and amazing, and we get back to these normal things.
Yeah, I'm excited. All right, thank you. I didn't realize that, we'd have COVID updates back on our agenda this year, but it's for good reasons. I think that is sitting there so that we can, move towards looking at our policies and making sure that we can meet the needs of our students and our faculty. All right, we'll move on to the final agenda item, which is the acceptance of a donation to the Borough program.
Thank you. I wanted to notify the school committee that the Borough program received a very gracious donation from a donor that has been working pretty collaboratively with the Borough leadership and Sherry Stevens related to the abilities to financially support some of their initiatives. So much so that the donor asked for kind of key line items and itemized requests and was willing to support that. So I wanted to ask for your acceptance of a gift currently at the amount of $6,500. And this is laid out essentially again for itemized request by the borough that will support, not only its programmatic growth, but the students that work there and the overall, the program that it, and the opportunities it provides. It is my understanding that these donations from this donor will continue. I'm not sure at what level of magnitude, but this appears to be an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Would the donation be anything that would be a recurring cost or affect the budget at all, like in the future?
Can you? I don't know. I don't think. I'm almost zero. Yeah. No.
Good question.
Yep.
Does the donor wish to remain anonymous?
I have her name, and it's at the top of my head. The top of my page is currently I'm going to keep it anonymous, and I will follow up because she may want to actually have her name, but I will let you know, and if it is, I'll put that in the minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I move that the school committee accept the donation of $6,500 for the borough program, and that we acknowledge the gift even though they wish to remain anonymous.
Perfect.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Rocco. Any other discussion?
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, very
Absolutely.
exciting.
Thank you so much. Yeah. All in favor? All right. Thank you. 5-0 in favor of accepting the donation. Thank you to our donor, and thank you for your continued support of the borough program.
There's exciting stuff happening over there. You should get over there.
Oh, yeah.
Fun things, and the store is thriving, and to see the activity of the students that are running the program now is really taking off. We have a couple other donors that are working with us that I think will probably receive another gift soon moving forward for continuing to support the payment of employees. And so that's exciting as well. There's just a lot of positive energy. And again, this is what makes Westborough a place to live. It's pretty amazing.
The Sugar Shack is my go-to place now for Westborough gear.
Well,
not
it's
just the
interesting
candy
because
scene,
their
but the Westborough
business,
gear.
it's kind of exciting because they're actual business donations for, they do corporate gifting. So they're starting to pick up more corporate and then bulk orders for birthdays and stuff that gives the students really innovative packaging and then delivery and itemizing and just the depth of the store's sales shift and deepen the quality of work. So, we're hopeful that the corporate gift where they get to do kind of a replicated small package that's specialized is kind of like right up their alley in terms of some of the cool things. But it is also neat when a customer will come in and they'll do just one itemized basket and the students get to, pull it all together and then deliver it. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really fun. I noticed last time I was in there, they have a box of retro candy. So it's like candy from my childhood all in one box. It's super fun. Yeah, it's
There's
great.
some fun things.
That's great.
So, thank you.
The next meeting of the school committee will be Wednesday, October 20th. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Thank you, Lisa. All in favor? All right, thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
Wow,
Thank you.
1 minute early, Miss.